Municipal Council will now come to order. Before we do after we do the salute to the flag, I'll ask everyone to remain standing so we can do a moment of silence for Mrs. Sue Arasian, the dear mother of our good friend and city planner Gary Arasian. Please join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I'm going to entertain a motion to suspend the rules so we can take the public hearings out of order as they're listed.
Second.
Thank you. This will be a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, good evening. And we'll begin this with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman.
Present. Yes.
Ms. Dolan. Yes. Laura. We know. Thank you. Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Vice President Kobus.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes. Present. Ms. Reynolds. Yes. Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone. Yes. President Delicio.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. And before we get started, we have here in person Councilor Waterman, Councilor Bennett, Councilor Kobus, myself, and Councilor Angelo. For those present, if you feel more comfortable taking your masks off, you can do so where we are socially distant, and we only have the 5 of us in the chambers. Remote, we have Councilor DeSimone, Councilor Conti, Councilor Reynolds, Councilor Holmes, Councilor Dolan, and Madam Clerk Jackson. I would like to approve, I entertain a motion to approve the records of January 4th, 2022, June 6th, 2017, April 10th, 2018, March 12th, 2019.
Second.
Thank you. Please note that executive sessions are June 6, 2017, April 10th, 2018, and March 12th, 2019. Are there any questions, thoughts, or concerns on these minutes? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, we would start with Councilor DeSimone, I believe.
DeSimone. Yes, you're correct. Ms. DeSimone. Yes. Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Vice President Kobus.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We have 8 public hearings this evening. We will be starting with the Class 2 application. So, Madam Clerk, could you please read the notice for the first public hearing?
Yes, sir. Public hearing regarding new Class 2 application for 800 Washington Street from the Blasus Auto Group with 10 customer parking spaces and 100 storage spaces.
Is there anyone in favor to, anyone here to speak in favor? Bruno.
Good evening.
Good evening. Bruno, could you state your name and address for the record,
Yes,
please?
Bruno Moreira, 45 West Street in Milford, Massachusetts.
And floor is yours. Anything you want us to know about your business and why you're looking for the Class 2 application?
Absolutely. Blaze is actually based off of Connecticut, Massachusetts. We are a Chevy dealership, and the Cadillac has been in business for over 100 years. We are now growing over to Massachusetts. We do currently have a location in Holliston. It's been in our possession for the last 3 years. We are currently purchased Automax pre-owned in December. We're looking to obtain a dealer's license at that location right there. I have joined the organization in November this year, which I do have a background in the car business for the last 17 years. I was working for a local dealership for Forma Auto Sales out of Milford, was a general manager there, and I was in charge for all the operations, and they brought me over to this location to basically be the operation manager.
Okay, terrific. Do we have any questions from the council? Bruno, how many employees are you going to have?
As right now, we do have 8, but the goal is to have 11 employees in place.
Okay, and will you be doing repairs or just sales?
Both.
Okay, and will you have someone on site at all time, a manager or a lead supervisor?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Seeing none. Okay, Ms. Waterman, do you want to walk Bruno through the process, what the next steps are, and when it comes out of committee in front of the full council and so on?
Yes. So it will go to committee next week, Bruno, and should it get through committee, fine. Then it goes to council in 2 weeks, and that's when we'll have a final vote.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds great.
thank you, and happy
Thank you very
birthday
much.
to your wife.
Thank you so much, folks.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Have a good trip.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Okay. Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Council Waterman, do you see a need to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
I would declare that public hearing closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the notice for the second public hearing?
The public hearing to amend section 10-8 monthly parking in the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor? We will recognize Jeremy Sull, who is the Director of Budget Administration. Jeremy, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. So yes, this is a request to amend section 10-8, trying to remedy 3 things as I laid out in my January 11th memo. Right now, you receive a bulk discount if you purchase a pass in advance quarterly. But if you do not receive a discount if you purchase bulk the 10 to 19, 20 to 29, or 30 or more. So I'm just clarifying that discount does not just apply to monthly bulk passes, but to quarterly. It seems silly to make these folks come in here 12 times a year when they want to come in here 4 times a year and continue this revenue stream for the city. The second thing I'm trying to address is that we currently have no mechanism for mid-month purchases. So if someone comes in on the second to last day of the month, they will be paying full freight, which doesn't seem fair. So I'm proposing just a binary either on or before the 15th of the month or after the 15th of the month. And after the 15th of the month, you receive a 50% discount, 50. And then the last piece that I'm proposing is to change the monthly fee. Again, this is for the monthly parking passes in the Sanford Street garage, which also allow parking in the rear row of the Bank Street parking lot and the Sanford Street surface parking lot, the one at the Y. Right now, the fees are $30 a month, and I'm proposing to raise them to $50 a month. They have not been changed in 16 years. And right now, if you purchase a pass at $30 a month, with your 10% discount for purchasing it at a quarter at a time, that works out to 90 cents a day, which is a steal. That's a steal at twice the price. So for $50 a month, it would work out to about $1.50 a day for guaranteed off-street parking, 24-hour parking, which I still think is entirely reasonable for this public good. So those are the 3 changes I'm proposing. I would like the clarification on language to go into effect as soon as possible, the same with the half-month discount, but proposing that the change in fee start on July 1st, 2022.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions or concerns for Jeremy? Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, President Delisio. Hey, Jeremy, thank you for coming. Of course. And so one of the questions I had for you a while back was, do you have any idea what the increased revenue will be as a result of these changes? Have you
So just in January, we sold 92 quarterly passes and 37 monthly passes. I don't know how many were discounted for bulk. I don't have that level of detail, but to say they were all purchased at the pre-bulk discount, that brought in about $8,500 worth of revenue. And if we increase the fee to $50, which would have been, a 66% increase in the fee, that would have brought us to $14,200 just in January alone. So our parking revenues, just on this revenue source, we can expect to see a few $1,000s per month. So even if we continue to see this $4,000 to $5,000 per month over the course of a year, that adds up pretty quickly.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Any other questions or concerns for Mr. Stull? Okay. Jeremy, thank you for coming down. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor DeSimone, do you see a need to keep this public hearing open?
I do not, thank you.
All right, I declare that public hearing closed. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the third public hearing?
Sir, public hearing to amend Chapter 17-9.0 Special Permits and Chapter 15.0 Site Plan Review of the Zoning Ordinances with the...
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Ms. Orazian, for the record, if you could just give us your name and address?
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Council President, before I begin, I was just wondering if I could just for 1 minute. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate that moment of silence for my mom. On behalf of my sister, my daughter, my family, it was very heartening. I want to thank the city councilors here, the city councilors on TV. I've had the privilege to work for the city for a very long time, pretty much my entire adult life, if you may. And this city just never ceases to amaze me. I just thank you. Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate those kind words and the gesture, so thank you.
Thank you for the sentiment. You're, as I said, you're a dear friend to us all.
Thank you, sir. So for the record, Council President, members of the Municipal Council, Planning Board Chairman, and members of the Planning Board, for the record, my name is Gary Orazian. I'm the city's Director of Planning and Development, and I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the proposed amendments to Section 17-9 and 17-15. If I may, the crux of the amendments is really is simply to improve what we already think is a very well-written site plan review ordinance. In the past, when we've adopted new zoning ordinances, be it the transit-oriented development ordinance, the marijuana ordinance, site plan review, marijuana, as I may have said, the sign ordinance. Some of these are new concepts, at least for Attleboro and their management. What we've always said, the staff and the planning board, that once we begin the implementation, and the zoning board for that matter, the administration, if we happen to find some glitches or places that we can improve the language of the ordinance, we'll always come back and modify those. So the site plan review ordinance was initially adopted by the Municipal Council in 2012, and over time we found some language that needs to be tightened, and the crux of it really is how do we address amendments to site plans that we've approved. And you might say, well Gary, geez, it's 2022, it took us 10 years. The good news is we don't get too many amendments. So, they're far and in between, but over time, between the staff and members of the planning board, as we reviewed them, we found that there really isn't a written ordinance or a process to process them. So we came up with a policy, and it's been working great, and we felt it was time to formalize that process, and that's why I'm here tonight. And again, this has the hands of the planning board all over it with the staff. So again, it's how to handle revised plans and amendments to the applications. We'd like to formalize that process. councilors, there are 13 proposed amendments altogether. I will tell you, most of them are housekeeping, as you probably already read through the ordinance. Items 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, and 13 are all essentially housekeeping matters. We have in some instances, we already have language in there. It's just a matter of renumbering. So what I thought we could do is really maybe briefly go over some of the major ones. And then, as I've always offered, I can always come back to the committee meeting and get into the minutia and start explaining, even with the housekeeping items, what they're all for. So just for the sake of saving time, I won't necessarily go over the housekeeping matters unless the council wants me to, or the planning board for that matter. So I'd like to think that the order that you have them is the order that I have them with me, the way it was advertised. Item number 4 states to amend subsection 17-15D4 site plan review fee schedule. This would be a request to have implement or adopt a fee schedule for amended site plans, whether it's a revised schematic plan, conceptual plan, an amended plan. We don't have a process, I shouldn't say, we don't have a fee schedule for that. So if the planning board were to approve a plan, and then 6 months later, for whatever reason, you need to modify the parking lot, reorient the building, change the curb cut, any variety of things, applicants come back and we entertain that, but there's no fee with that, there's no process with that. So the planning board and staff came up with what we think is a very reasonable fee schedule. Again, that's item number 4. Item number 9 is an entirely new section. What we wanted to do, and I could give a copy of this, I have one copy right now. Section 9, or item number 9, talks about amending 17-15J2E site plan review architectural elevations. What we find very helpful are graphics, do's and don'ts. We could sit there and write a very prescriptive ordinance and could probably go on for volumes and volumes. But clearly a graphic of what to do or what we prefer to do in Attleboro versus what we prefer not to do in Attleboro, we thought would be much easier if we had some cartoon-like or graphics. So staff came up with a few, we delivered these by the planning board. I'll give this copy to Virginia.
Great.
Have that circulated. It's not a final document, the board's still working on it, we're crafting some, but this would be the insert for item number 9, which talks about architectural elevations. These are the cartoons, if you may. Item number 10 talks about waivers. Again, over the course of time, as applicants have appeared before the planning board for site plan review, and before the review committee for minor site plan review, there have been instances where, for any permit process in the city, petitioners asked for a waiver. Once again, we didn't have a process for that, and the planning board and the staff submit to the council amending the ordinance to adopt 17-15K site plan review waivers. And once again, during the committee meeting, I'll be happy to come back and go over the optics with that and explain the process, the genesis of it, the purpose of it, and any questions that the council might have. The last item is really the heart of the ordinance. It's item number 12, and that would be to amend subsection 17-15 site plan review amendments, introducing section O. One has to do with amending the review committee's decision. The review committee is the administrative decision where it doesn't require a public hearing. The review committee consists of the planning board chairman, my position, the police chief, the fire chief, and I believe it's the building inspector. So we have an administrative process to handle smaller projects. Then there's the major site plan review, which triggers the planning board. And item number 12, and I hope, again, these align with what you have in front of you, that entire section O proposes a process on how to administer and take in and process an amended application. That's pretty much it. So again, items 4, 9, 10, and 12, 4, 9, 10, and 12 are really the heart of it. Again, it all has to do on how we would process plan amendments. It brings formality to the process. It's clear, it's concise, we know what it is, rather than going through the process and for an applicant to try to work it through, it's all up front. So that's the end of my presentation. Like I said, I'll be more than happy to come back at a committee meeting or committee meetings and go over each item, the minutia, not to take up your public hearing time.
No, I appreciate
If there's
it.
any questions?
Councilor Holmes, do you have a question?
Thank you. Thank you, Gary, for coming in. The amendment, section O that's being added is to add the administration to this process.
On how to, yes, for plan amendments to a previously approved project.
Okay, and so does this change the municipal council's role of?
Well, the council's role is whether to adopt the amendments or not. I don't think the city council has a role in the site plan review process.
Well, you said something about there used to be public hearings and now there will no longer be public hearings, so I was just confused about.
I did? I'm not sure.
You said something like there would be public hearings that were joint public hearings with the planning board, now the administration would be involved in it, so that was what I was gathering.
No, okay,
So
so,
maybe,
that's
tell me
a-
how again.
so let me restate. So there are two types of site plan review. There's what we call minor site plan review and major site plan review. If you trigger certain optics, it's just a minor review. That's an administrative decision by staff. There's also then major site plan review, where if you trigger certain optics, there's a public hearing process through the planning board. But there's no joint public hearing or anything like that, so I don't think I said that, and if I did, I apologize, but there's no joint public hearing process or municipal council involvement in the site plan review process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Gary, may I ask just a clarifying question? So it's administrative, not administration, correct? And I think that might be where some of the confusion came in. So it's administrative, not the administration, the mayor's office.
No, administrative.
Yep, okay. I think that might have been what some of the confusion was.
Okay, I apologize, okay.
No, that's why we're having this. It's all fine. It's all good. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Arazian? Any other questions for Mr. Arazian? All right, Gary, thank you very much.
Do you want me to clarify anything else, or for Councilor Holmes, I'm sorry if I,
No,
if not, we're good. Okay,
Oh, thank you. I think I just didn't hear that correctly.
okay, all right.
Just to clarify, so this all makes sense to me, and it sounds great, but are you supportive of this and encouraging the council to
100%,
adopt
yes.
this? Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make
again,
sure.
I'm speaking in favor of the proposed amendments, Councilor
Gotcha.
Kugas.
Wanted to make that clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Arazian? Okay, thanks, Gary.
Very good, thank you.
Do we have anyone else speak in favor?
And I'll be sure to give these to Virginia later on.
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Good evening, Jack Jacoby. I'm an attorney with offices at 144 Bank Street. I occasionally appear before the planning board on major site plan reviews. That was a joke, group. And I absolutely endorse everything that Gary is proposing here. Clarity makes it much easier for me to practice, to understand and explain to my clients what it is that is expected and what standards we have to meet. And every time you write an ordinance, you do your best, but life has a way of throwing curveballs. And so Gary has figured out a way to hit a few of those curveballs. And so as a practicing attorney, I endorse the changes.
Okay, excellent. Any questions for Mr. Jacoby? All right, thank you, Jack. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Anybody in opposition? Do we have anyone here in opposition? Do we have anyone who's neither for nor against this ordinance? Anyone neither for nor against? Chair Giddle, do you see a need to keep this public hearing open?
No, sir, I don't.
All right, thank you. And Council Holmes, do you see a reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
All right, I will declare that public hearing closed. Thank you, and thank you to the planning board as always. And Madam Clerk, if you could read the communication for the fourth public hearing.
Fourth public hearing this evening regarding the submission to the council of the proposed capital improvements program fiscal year 2023 and 2037.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Council Conti, do you see a need to keep this public hearing open?
Mr. President, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good, because my video is frozen and I wasn't sure that I was getting through. I would wish to close the public hearing. Thank you, sir.
All right, consider it done. That public hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, can you please go on to the reading of the fifth communication? The fifth, does
Public
somebody?
hearing to address the following amendment to section 10-4 by adding section 10-4.18E. The following streets are designated as having speed humps, speed cushions, and the city is hereby authorized and directed to erect and maintain speed humps, speed cushions. Add the following in proper alphabetical order: Claflin Street.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak against?
Jay, I'm sorry, this is Paul Hero. I was hoping to speak in favor of that.
Yes, Mayor, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had my computer on mute. So the, just to update you guys on what it is we're talking about here with Claflin Street. As all of you know, the City Council voted to allow for a permanent speed hump ordinance. And this proposal to allow Claflin Street to have permanent speed humps on it is something that you have the information in front of you. You have the data we collected from the police department. I sent down testimony emails and letters that I got from people who live on Claflin Street in support or opposition to it. In fact, there was only one home that was in opposition to speed humps on Claflin Street. So what the proposal is seeking to do is get permission from the City Council to have DPW construct a series of speed humps on Claflin Street because we've already done a little experiment. So that's basically what it is, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions for the mayor? Councilor Reynolds and then DeSimone?
Mayor, I would just like to ask if down the road they decide the street residents decide they don't want it there, what would the option be at that time? Can they be removed easily?
Oh yeah, we could remove them, but the point of doing the experiment first with the temporary speed humps is to prevent something like that from happening. Well, let's just say for the sake of argument, 20 or 30 years from now, you have a completely new neighborhood, a whole bunch of new residents, and they don't like them. Yeah, we could do that. It's just milling them down and having DPW remove them. But that actually, your concern about the future where somebody might not like them is exactly why I don't want to put up speed humps, with the exception of a school zone, without input from the residents by doing an experiment first with temporary speed humps. We did the experiment. The people of the neighborhood know what it's like to have this speed humps on the road. They, I asked them, ahead of time before I sent this down, do you want permanent speed humps? You experienced the temporary ones. Do you want them there permanently? They said yes, and that's if the people of the neighborhood had said no to me, I'm not going to send that down. I don't think it would get a lot of support from the council if the people of the neighborhood are saying no. I think the only exception is something where we had a school zone, where then we might need to put speed humps up if that's what is determined the right thing to do. But that's not what we're talking about here. But yeah, it is something that DPW could. Take down. I mean, we're about to demolish a high school that was built in the 1960s and then further built in, I think, the early 70s. So if we can take down that high school, we could easily remove these speed humps.
May I?
You may.
Mayor Hero, I'd also like just refresh my memory. How long would they were they up? The ones to make sure that the residents wanted them. How long were the temporary ones up?
Okay, so they were up for several months. I forgot exactly what year it was. It might have been 2019 or it might have been 2020. I forgot exactly what year we put those up, the temporary ones. But they were up for several months. We collected data before they were put up. We got the pre-test data of what the speeds were, and then we put the speed hump up, and then we got the post-test data, and we could see a decrease in the speed that cars were traveling. Speed humps, by definition, slow down cars, and they did. And we also saw that there was a slight deterrent effect where people were no longer using Claflin Street. They wanted to avoid the speed humps and stay on Holden Street. And that was the intended effect. We want to slow people down and deter them from using Claflin as a cut through. And so by ordinance, we are not allowed to put up speed humps between October and, I should say, the end of October and April, and for obvious reasons. Even if we didn't have the ordinance, it wouldn't make sense to put those up because the snow plows would destroy temporary speed humps. But they were up, to answer your question, no, they were up for several months back in 2019 or 2020.
Hey, and if I may, one more
You may.
question. May I ask you how far these will be in relation to each other? I mean, 15 feet apart, 20 feet apart?
Oh gosh, no. Really good question. So that's something that we would probably bring DPW superintendent and the police chief down, or their designees, to figure out what makes the most sense for that road. Would that road make the most sense to have two up, or like a set of two or a set of three, and how far apart would they, for that particular road, based on how many we have, so it would be a decision that's made by the police chief and by DPW. They would come into agreement about that. So when we put up the temporary speed humps on Rocklawn Ave, we had a learning experiment. We learned a lesson from that. It was a little bit of a takeaway. We put up one speed hump over by 190 Rocklawn Ave, which just happens to be directly in front of my dad's house, and we did that so we didn't disturb anybody else. But then we put up another one closer to Todd Drive, just after Todd Drive. And what we found was that it really didn't do much because they were so far apart. It actually kind of annoyed people. They had to slow down, but then they would speed up really fast. So when so Kyle and I were talking about that, and he said, yeah, it actually makes sense to have 2 or 3 of them in a small section where they're staggered in a way that it makes it so that the car has to slow down, but then it's not even worth their while to speed up to get to the new one, the next one, the second one, because then they're already slowing down again. In the width of the road influences that. The length of the road is also going to influence that. But like I said, that's something that the police chief and DPW would get to. They literally just go out there and look at the road, and based on their own experience, they'd say, okay, this is what makes the most sense for this particular road, whether it's 2, whether it's 3. I think for Claflin, it'll probably be, probably 2 or 3. I can't imagine it being more than that. Another road in the future might need 4 or 5. Another road might just need 2. It depends on that road, the length and the width.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Farrow. That concludes my comment.
Thank you, Councilor Reynolds. Councilor DeSimone, then we'll go to Councilor Angelo and Councilor Waterman.
Thank you, President Dosu. Hello, Mayor. Thank you for coming down and speaking to us. I'm going to piggyback on Councilor Reynolds because I have to confess it didn't occur to me that we could have multiple speed humps on the same road, particularly when you say 4 or 5. That's I didn't envision that. I didn't envision that initially, and I guess so. That's interesting and potentially problematic, in my opinion. But my question is, Mayor, when you put the temps down and then you poll the neighbors, are the permanents going to be placed where the temps are, Mayor? And if not, might that affect some of the neighbors' opinions on the matter, if the hump is in front of them or not, in front of their house?
Yeah, so it depends. Okay, so when I said 4 or 5, first of all, I can't imagine any cut-through street needing 4 or 5. That would probably be pretty extreme. But I leave that open as a possibility. I like to, make sure we're flexible in the future if we need to be flexible. But I think usually it's going to be 2 or 3, for cut-through streets. When I have deployed them, and I would hope whoever the next mayor is would do the same thing, before you deploy the speed humps, the temporary speed humps, get input from the residents and this is what we've done, and what I've done, and I hope this practice continues, but get input, because if a resident says, I don't want these in front of my house, we're not gonna put them in front of somebody's house. We'll work with that. We wanna have a successful experiment, so that way we can have the data we need to put down permanent speed humps, then to make it so that people are gonna be happy with the outcome, the final product. So we look at that first, who wants them, who doesn't want them, and if the majority of the people don't want them, we don't do it at all. And if there's people don't want them in front of their house, we're not going to put them in front of the house. We'll figure something else out. We'll move them down a little bit. So there's only one house on Clapham Street, and I provided the council with all of the information I got back from residents. I forgot the address of that house, but the council has that information. Only one house, there's 2 different letters that both people didn't want the speed humps at all. So if the council were to give it the administration permission to build the speed humps, we would then approach that house and say, look, we're gonna do it, but we're gonna stay away from your house unless you want them directly in front of your house. Because as counterintuitive as that might sound, when a car slows down and they go over the speed hump in front of somebody's house, what they're not doing is they're not speeding up between the speed humps. So you could say to somebody, okay, we're gonna put these up, but which is your preference? Would you rather have people slowing down in front of your house, where you might hear the thump thump, or would you rather take a chance where they're speeding up and you're hearing the rev of their engine? So we're gonna work with people, we try and make people as happy as possible. It's like that when we build a new sidewalk. If somebody wants the sidewalk, the curb cut into their driveway a little bit wider, or a little bit narrower, or even moved over, we do the best we can.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Angelo.
Thank you, President Delicio. Mr. Mayor, I apologize if this has already been answered, but I have 2 questions. First one's a 2-part. How many residents were polled, and you said there was one that was against it?
Yes. So good question. So when I do something like this, I send out a letter to everyone who lives on the street or everybody who lives in the neighborhood. So for example, with Rocklawn Ave, it's everybody on Rocklawn, but also the streets just off of Rocklawn, because they're all a bunch of dead ends, and they're going to be, the residents of those would be affected by this. And for Clapham Street specifically, I sent out a letter twice, in fact. I wanted to ask people a second round. It said, do you want these here? Please write back to me or email me. And all of the information that I got back from the people who live on Claflin Street, I provided to the council. And like I said, there was only one house that responded saying they don't want these, and both people in the house said they don't want them. But to answer your question, every house. I polled every house.
And how many responses did you get back?
I don't remember the exact number, but the council has all of those. And it was, I believe it was a majority of the houses. Not all of them responded, and that's pretty normal. I mean, every time I've done a little experiment like this with temporary speed humps, I haven't heard back from everyone. In fact, on Rocklawn Ave, the most vocal opponent of the speed humps on Rocklawn Ave is somebody who never responded to my initial poll in the first place. And this very vocal opponent of the speed humps in Rocklawn Ave has, even though I wrote to this person again, asked after the fact, they never responded. So, I write to them before and I write to them after saying, okay, we're gonna do this, here's a heads up, the experiment. And afterwards, I always say, hey, what did you think of the experiment? And not everybody responds. As a point of clarification though, I never want to deploy speed humps to a street. Again, the school zones are an exception, but I never want to deploy speed humps to a street where the residents are not asking for the speed humps. The only time I'm going to deploy the speed humps is when the residents who live on that street have identified that there's a problem with speeding or an excessive volume of cars, which speed humps act as a deterrent as well.
Thank you. And I know my last question, I know speed humps are widely used, and they will be constructed with no issues with plowing in the wintertime, so we're not having to reduplicate this year after year?
Correct. That's absolutely a really good point too. So the entity that's going to construct the speed humps is the same entity that is going to be plowing, and that's DPW. So the speed humps are typically about 4 inches high, and they have a 6 foot, they incline over a 6 feet period of time, a 6 foot distance, I should say, not period of time, a 6 foot distance that'll bring up to a 4 inches above, you know, what the surface would have been, and then it goes across about 10 feet, and then it goes down another 6 feet. So all in all, they're roughly 22 feet. You know, if you take the 6 feet, and then the 10 feet in between. And what that does is it allows for a plow to go nice and up and easy, nice and smooth over it, as opposed to a speed bump, which you find in a parking lot, which if a plow hits that, it's going to destroy the speed bump, and it's also probably going to mess up the plow. So the speed humps or the speed tables, you know, depending on the speed is what determines if it's called a table or a hump, but they basically are, you know, they're constructed in a way that allows plows to go up and over them. And there's, like I said, there's a difference between a speed hump and a speed table. What I just described is a speed table. In some places, on some roads, DPW might say a speed table is what's appropriate here, where you go up for 6 feet and then across for 10 feet and then down for 6 feet. And again, it's only 4 inches off the ground. But in other places, it might be a speed hump, which is like a very large speed bump. But both of those allow for plows up and easy, nice and smooth.
Thank you.
Council Waterman.
Yes, Mayor Hero, could you comment about Bank Street Extension, which is the other side of the sharp curve there? Because the reason I ask that is because I've talked to people there on that right on that sharp corner, who say that they're speeding right around that corner, and that section is Bank Street Extension.
Yeah, so I don't think that the ordinance allows us, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think the ordinance allows us to put these on the bends, like on a curb. But the police chief, the DPW super, and I, we're all in agreement. We don't want to actually put one of these on like a corner where it's a bend. A couple problems. You want cars to be able to see these. And if they come flying around a corner and they bump, you know, you could cause an accident, you could cause damage to the car. We don't want that. We want to give people enough. In addition to having the speed hump on the ground built into the asphalt, you also have to have signs on the left and right identifying that there's a speed hump. And then it would also be painted so people can properly see. Because we don't want to catch people off guard. So I don't think we would put a speed hump on the corner itself. We would do one before the corner, you know, on Bank Street Extension, or one after the corner on Claflin Street, but not actually in the corner, in that curve.
Okay, so there may be one going on Bank Street Extension.
Well, I don't know, because it depends if the council were to amend this, allowing for permission. Because I didn't honestly, I didn't think of that. And, you know, putting one on Bank Street Extension, we only looked at it on Claflin Street. So if the council would want to extend the scope of this to allow us to put one of these before that corner on Bank Street Extension, I'm going to say thank you. That's probably going to slow cars down before they get to the corner. So they slow down before they get to the corner, but then they have to take the corner and then slow down. And as they take the corner and they're now turning a left onto Claflin Street, they're going to see the next speed hump and they're going to be forced to slow down for that as well. So Claflin would probably need about 3 of them on Claflin because of the length of it. And by the way, just about the construction too, they are, unlike the temporary speed humps, these are, the permanent ones are constructed of asphalt, curb to curb, so people can't drive between them, like a motorcycle might with the temporary ones. But the curb also allows for water and runoff to continue draining in the gutters, wherever we construct those, so that there won't be any flooding or pooling.
Councilor Bennett?
Good evening, Mayor. I have 2 questions for you. With regard to the Bank Street Extension portion, were any of those residents pulled as part of this?
You know, I don't remember. Okay, the second poll, the answer would be no, and I'm almost certain of that because I did the poll recently. The first poll, I don't remember if I did it on the first poll or not. I just don't remember. There's probably 2 or 3 houses over there at most. we could go back and just knock on their door and ask them, and maybe we could send them a follow-up letter. But I know for a fact, the second time I polled them, actually it would have really been the third time. The first time would have been the pre-test, then I did two post-tests, two post-test polls. The second one, I know I did, the first one, I just don't remember.
Thank you. And my second question has to do with one of the criticisms in the no letter that had come through from one of the residents had mentioned increase in backups on Holden Street. Was any data collected to show a reduction in the use of Claflin Street with those temporary speed humps being in there, and maybe an increase of use of Holden Street to get to North Main, and maybe exacerbating an issue with backups at that intersection?
Yeah, the reduction in the number of cars, the data that you guys should have, that you guys, the city council, the data that city council should have, it will show that there was a reduction in speed, but there was also a barely noticeable reduction in the cars. So, a barely noticeable, I mean, it was a very insignificant number that moved over from Claflin to Holden. And, so there's, because it's insignificant, I would say we don't have anything to worry about. When we looked at this on May Street, we did the experiment on May Street with speed humps, we did actually, quite honestly, we only found a decrease in the speed that people traveled on, which the neighbors were thankful for, but we did not find a decrease in the number of cars. So they didn't deter people and move them down to Angeline or onto around Roberts Formals, but it did slow them down. So the speed humps can do it can do one of two things or two of two things: slow them down and or deter them from even using it.
Thank you.
Vice President Kobus.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Mayor Hero. One thing to know, I did flip through, for Councilor Bennett, I flipped through the polling and the letters that people responded with, and there wasn't anything from Bank Street. It was just residents from Claflin. First question, Mayor, is can you describe again, just for everybody, what we're talking about with the permanent speed humps and the description, specifically that they're not the sort of the narrow old speed bumps that we're familiar with?
No, really good question. So if you want a visual of it, what I would encourage you to do is do a Google image search of speed hump, because the speed hump and speed table are interchangeable. But basically, they elevate the road about 4 inches, and it takes about 6 feet you're going up very slowly over the course of 6 feet to get to that 4 inches, but then you're going down and then you go across it can be up to 10 feet, it doesn't have to be exactly 10 feet, it could be going up 6 feet, going across 6 feet, and then down 6 feet, so that's a total of 18 feet from start to finish. But that's something that will allow plows to go up and over nice and smoothly, and then go down, so we don't have to worry about damage to them. So the width is curb to curb, with the exception of what the gutter would allow. It's curb to curb, constructed of asphalt, and they're painted so people can see them as they're approaching. There'll be signs to the left and the right indicating that there's a speed hump and a reduced speed limit, which would be 15 miles per hour going over the speed hump. And then you also have the difference between that, it could be 18 feet wide, from start to finish. So somebody's going up this speed, over it, down 6 feet, as opposed to a speed bump in a parking lot. A speed bump in a parking lot is probably only about 18 to 24 inches wide. It'll go curb to curb, but it being 18 to 24 inches wide, when a plow hits that, it doesn't have a chance to go up it over a 6-foot incline and then across it and then down. It just hits it, and then by the time you're done with it, you're bumping over it. So they're different tools for different contexts. But yeah, this is 18 feet wide versus, which we're looking at doing, versus something that's 18 to 24 inches wide, which a plow would just get destroyed, and it would destroy the speed hump. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. The second item is the complaint. The residents that complained and said that they did not want the speed humps were the residents that had the temporary speed humps in front of their house. And so, can you talk a little bit about the process for how you're going to figure out where to place these, and Are you going to talk to those residents to make sure that if they're opposed to it, that it's not going to be in front of their house?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like any other public works project, that we do on roads. There's a lot of communication with the residents. Some residents we have more communication with than others because they're more invested, they're more concerned. But basically, the one house that doesn't want these, what I would do is I would personally reach out to them, send them a letter. If I don't hear back from them, go knock on their door and say, hey, this is the council gave us the permission to do this. We want to do this as least intrusive as possible. Would you like to, when we put these down, there's going to be one of two things that happen. It's people are going to slow down and you hear a thump thump in front of your house, very slow. You actually might not really hear a thump thump like a speed bump, but people will slow down in front of the house, or they would speed up. It's between the two of them. What would your preference be? And so once we have that data point, then the police chief, DPW, maybe I get involved myself. We go down there, probably just the two of them. They go down there and they say, okay, this is the one concern in the neighborhood. How do we work around that concern in this neighborhood? And that way they can accommodate the vast majority of the people who want these with the minimal amount of impact on the person that did the house that didn't want them. That's basically how I would handle it. I mean, it's sometimes you have to get that shoe leather, that direct face-to-face time, and just talk to the people and say, hey, what can we do for you? How can we make this work out?
Perfect, thank you. And then the last question I have is, where this is the first set of permanent speed humps, is there anything you're planning to do in order to measure the effectiveness or the success for these ones that may be different than other ones? Are we doing anything special?
No, that hadn't been talked about, because but what we can do is the city council gave the administration the money. It was $3,000 to buy the police department, its own traffic counter, so we can deploy that after we have constructed the permanent speed humps to see what. In fact, we can do it again. We can deploy this speed traffic counter before and after the speed humps, the permanent ones, although we're kind of repeating the experiment, to see what the permanent ones have done, if it's deterred people. I think over the course of time, if we had and this is just my own hunch, if we had 3 speed humps on Claflin Street, we're going to see a lot more cars be diverted to Holden Street, because that's the point of a speed hump. It's to make the cars slow down and also to divert them to the street we want them traveling on, which is Holden Street. We don't want people, a quiet little road like Claflin Street being used as a cut-through street. Just like May Street, we don't want that being used as a cut-through street. Rocklawn Ave, we don't want that being used as a cut-through street. I think I have a list of about 10 or 12 streets that want these temporary speed humps to be deployed, so we can start the process to do the experiment.
Thank you, Mayor Hero. And so for me personally, one of the things that I would like to see in order to evaluate sort of the next set of permanent speed humps would be data proving that these permanent speed humps, the results of the permanent speed humps match the experiment data we did with the temporary speed humps, just to make sure that we are actually getting what we expect out of this. So
yeah, that's fair. I would actually think, and I'm just speculating here, that the data from the permanent speed humps is actually going to be more supportive. And the reason for that is the temporary speed humps, they have a gap between them. They typically, not always, but they typically have a gap between them where a motorcycle can cut through, or cars a small enough car, or can go to the middle of the road and avoid having the driver's side tires, so you can continue on your speed. Whereas the permanent speed humps are constructed from curb to curb, so you wouldn't really you couldn't do that. So I would actually expect the permanent speed humps to be even more effective than the temporary ones. But the way to prove that is to collect the data like you're asking.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions for the mayor? All right, Mayor Hero, thank you for joining us tonight. Do we have anyone else? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Councilor Bennett, before I ask if you'd like to close it, one suggestion is you may want to work with Superintendent Tyler, see if we can do a site visit, which I think would help to visualize and kind of see where some of these might be going. I think there was a lot thrown out, so just a suggestion, do what you'd like with it, but that being said, you see a need to keep this public hearing open.
I do not.
I declare that public hearing closed. And Madam Clerk, will you read the notice for the 6th public hearing, please?
Sixth public hearing, to add no parking on the southerly side of East Street, 510 feet from O'Neill Boulevard.
Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Council Bennett, do you see a need to keep this public hearing open?
I do not. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I declare that public hearing closed. Madam Clerk, will you read the notice for the 7th public hearing, please?
Seventh public hearing to amend Chapter 10-4.11, isolated stop signs of the revised ordinances as follows. Delete westbound drivers on Bliss Avenue at Bourne Avenue and replace with eastbound and westbound on Bliss Avenue at Bourne Avenue.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Council Bennett, do you see a need to keep that, this public hearing open?
Thank you, Mr. President. No, I do not.
I would declare that public hearing closed as well. And to the 8th and final public hearing, Madam Clerk.
Final 8th public hearing for a special act to amend the city charter, Article 3, Section 3-8A, vacancy in office of the mayor, special election.
And do we have anyone to speak in favor? Mayor Harrob.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So, this proposal is to close a gap that our writers of the charter overlooked. It was an honest oversight, and basically what we are looking at is, if you look at section, and by the way, first of all, I apologize for my camera not being on. I have a camera in front of me, so if you know, Jim Jones and AACS give me access, you can actually see me, so I just feel bad that my face isn't appearing, I'm speaking, I'm just a voice, but the city charter, in section 3-8A, talks about how if there's a vacancy that occurs, and a vacancy by definition is permanent. It's the death, it's the resignation, or any other permanent, status. So the mayor has left the office. If that happens, and it's more than 9 months, because there's a difference between less than 9 months and more than 9 months. If there's more than 9 months, the city council calls for a special election. And whoever the special election goes to the voters, and the people then decide who the next mayor is going to be to fill that vacancy. And I don't have a problem with that. I think it's great. If it's more than 9 months, I think that's the right way to do it. But here's the gap is, who is going to sign payroll and be the acting mayor, or I should say the interim mayor, when the vacancy has occurred? Because if you look at that language of the charter in section 3-8A, it basically says a vacancy occurs, the council calls for an election. But what that section of the charter does not identify is who is going to be the acting or the interim mayor. Now, section 3-7 talks about an absence, and the absence, by definition, it even says it in the title, an absence is temporary. And so under the temporary statute, the council president automatically becomes the acting mayor. And we saw that happen with Judy Robbins when she was ill, and then Benny Keene, the council president, stepped in. But that section 3-7 does not apply to section 3-8. We can't just say we're going to borrow that because we're talking about two different circumstances. A temporary absence versus a permanent vacancy. So the language of 3-7 does not act, it cannot legally be used unless we were to make it that way, you know. But it can't be used to just say, okay, well, we'll just, you know, the charter is silent on it, so let's just go ahead and, you know, say that the president will, you know, be the acting mayor and the interim mayor. If we were to take that approach, what could happen is that if a decision that the mayor makes, the interim mayor makes, upsets somebody, the city could be sued and we would probably lose because the interim mayor wouldn't have the legal authority. There is no document that gives that interim mayor, you know, between when the vacancy occurs and when the election happens to actually be that. So what I'm proposing is that we take the language from section 3.8b, which talks about there being a vacancy less than 9 months. If there's a vacancy less than 9 months, it doesn't make sense to have a special election. You know, so I think the charter's got the writers of the charter got that right. If there's less than 9 months, let's just say for the sake of argument, in the 23rd month or the 21st month or the 20th month of a term, the mayor dies or the mayor vacates, and then there's a permanent vacancy. Well, we wouldn't, if it's a 22nd month, if it's November or October, we don't have time to do an election. Really, the right thing to do is to have the council choose somebody from the council to act as the mayor for that interim. And that's exactly what section 3.8b does. So what I did with Cindy Amara, when we discovered that this was and it's actually the elections office, Leslie Vega, who discovered this, you know, give credit where it's due. She noticed that there was a gap and it didn't automatically go to the president. Cindy Amara, the city solicitor, and I looked at it a lot closer. We said, actually, it doesn't automatically go to the president. It goes to the council. But then we further noticed that in section 3.8a, there was this gap. So what I'm proposing is symmetry. Before 9 months and after 9 months. What I'm proposing is that the council choose, so section 3.8b, less than 9 months is already covered. We don't have to worry about that. But if it's more than 9 months, what I'm proposing is that the council choose somebody from the council to be the interim mayor while the vacancy is happening before that special election is resolved, so the interim mayor would be mayor for about probably 8 to 10 weeks at most. Now, one of the proposal, one idea could be, well, why don't we just have it automatically be the council president, like section 3.7? Cindy and I, we talked about this. At least I don't think that's a good idea. I think Cindy's in agreement with me, but you can ask her about that. There's a couple things we said about that. If we have it so that the council chooses somebody from the council, what we're doing is we're having symmetry between section 3.8a and 3.8b when there's a vacancy. Now you have symmetry. Under both circumstances, the council chooses somebody from the council. If we were to automatically have it be the council president, there's a couple of problems with that. One, the council president might not be willing or able to do it. And then even if we say, okay, well, automatically goes to the council vice president, again, maybe not be willing or able to do that. And so I would suggest that, this is why I propose this, that the council choose somebody from the council rather than have it be by default just being the council president for this vacancy. A future council president might come about and say, look, I'm happy to be council president, but if a vacancy ever occurs, I don't want to be the mayor. If we were to reconstruct this in a way, and this is what I didn't propose, but I know there's a proposal out there to do this, if we were to make it so that it's automatically the council president, that basically ties that council president into doing it. What if they can't do it? What if they don't want to do it? I think it's best to allow the council to choose somebody from the council who's willing and able to do it, because it just allows for flexibility. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, we have a council president who says, yeah, I want to be council president. I don't want to be mayor if that comes up. But the city charter now says, well, I guess I'm not going to be council president. What if that person was the best fit for the council to be president. So, like I said, I just worry that if we were to do anything other than choosing somebody from the council to be this interim president, if it's by default the council president, we're really acting in a short-sighted way. We have to think about what's going to happen in the future. The power still all rests within the council, and that's where I think it should be. And the power still rests with the council to choose somebody from the council, just like in section 3.8b. But it's basically saying that for 3.8a also. So you have symmetry, you have flexibility, and you don't have all the potential unintended consequences. And let's just say for the sake of argument, the council elects somebody to be president in the future, and that council president, I think Mr. Delicio, Council President Delicio, is doing a fine job. But let's just say in the future, the council elects somebody to be a council president who is a complete flop. And now by default, that complete flop of a council president is now going to be the interim mayor. And what if all other 10 members of the council say, no, we have buyer's remorse. We want to choose somebody else. I would just strongly encourage the council to have symmetry with section 3.8b and section 3.8a and allow for flexibility to choose who you think is the best person to fill that vacancy. So I've probably said this a million different ways for far too long, but I'll stop and take any questions.
Do we have any questions for the mayor? Councilor Angelo.
Thank you, President Delicio. I probably wouldn't support this as it's the way it is written presently. I feel, in my own opinion, we elected a president and vice president with knowing that is possibility to actually act as mayor, which the council president would already act as mayor in the absence.
Excuse me, Councilor Angelo, do you have a question? Because we're not going to be arguing the merits of this on the floor right now. The public hearings are for clarifying questions.
I guess that concludes my
Thank
comments.
you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any other questions for the mayor? Okay, Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. So in the communication that you brought down to the council, thank you for bringing this to our attention, you had said a statement such as, it was previously thought that it would be like it seemed to me like there was some sort of understanding in the city that that's what would happen.
Well, we've never been in this situation before, and so we've never looked at this. And the reason we were looking at this right now is because, quite honestly, I might not finish this term. I mean, I was clear about that before, but that's a different issue. So when somebody in the elections office, Leslie Vega, looked at this, I don't know why she looked at it, but she looked at it and she said, hey, Paul, it's not automatically, section 3.7 says if it's an absence, if it's a temporary absence, an absence by definition is temporary, it is the council president. But if it's a vacancy that's permanent, it's not active, it actually goes to a vote of the council. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. So I started looking at it, and that's when I discovered that there was this gap in coverage. And I took that to the city solicitor, and she said, oh yeah, there is a gap in coverage. So I'm only the 18th mayor, and we've never been in this situation before. But if I get hit by a bus, if I step outside and I get hit by a bus, or I get abducted by aliens, or I have a heart attack and I'm dead, the city does not have this. There is nobody with the legal authority to sign payroll. If the city council were to pass an ordinance, we don't have to worry about that, because if the mayor doesn't sign it within 10 days, it automatically has the effect of law, so we don't have to worry about that. But we don't have anybody who would be able to, be the final person who can give instructions to DPW or the police chief or the fire chief, to issue orders. Because legally, again, if you look at the city charter, each section 3.7 takes care of one set of circumstances. 3.8a is a different set of circumstances. 3.8b is a different set of circumstances. And so it's not like you can mix and match. Although what I've done is I've taken the intent of section 3.8b and applied that to the section of 3.8a for the sake of symmetry, and to retain the council would then continue to have the discretion to appoint who the interim mayor is. There's a difference between acting mayor and interim mayor, but who the interim mayor would be. Acting mayor applies to a vacancy, absence, whereas interim mayor applies to a vacancy. So just so I'm clear about those things. But I'm only the 18th mayor. It's never come up before. We've never had a mayor, to my knowledge anyway, declare a vacancy. But like I said, I could get abducted by the aliens. I could get hit by a bus. I could have a heart attack. I could just suddenly die. I mean, if that happens tonight or tomorrow, we don't have anybody to sign payroll. That's a problem. We have to close this hole. There's a couple different ways to do that. We can disagree about the different ways to do that. I have what I'm proposing as the most efficient and the most consistent way with what the charter was drafted as. It's consistent. And power is remained in the council. But the most important thing is that we close this hole. That's the important thing.
Council Holmes, a follow-up?
Thank you. So, you can, if you want to just briefly tell us, what, if this does pass, I guess, what would the steps be?
Yeah, really good question. So the next step is that if the council passes it, I sign it, and then I send it up to the State House using the state delegation. It then gets assigned by the House clerk, the House clerk, to one of the committees. It would then go to the Municipalities Committee. I was on the Municipalities Committee for 2 terms at the State House. It's basically a rubber stamp committee. Now, we sent another piece of legislation to the Municipality Committee. That was the gender issue for the city charter, to make it more gender neutral, and that took several years to go through. I don't think that's going to happen with this one for a number of reasons. Number one, that it happened at a time of COVID. The other issue went through at a time of COVID, and it basically, COVID slowed everything down. Discretionary types of, I don't want to call it less important. It's certainly not less important, but just, somebody decided it wasn't, the other charter change that we did wasn't going to, it wasn't going to happen as fast. I think if I were to get elected, I think the state legislature would recognize that we would have a gap in coverage. I think that we can also make a strong case to the state legislature that they shouldn't wait until November or December. This is a hole that could cause a real crisis right now. If I get hit by the bus, if I have a heart attack, if I get abducted by aliens. I mean, it's just, I say that jokingly, but it's stranger things have happened. So I think this sense of urgency that we have a potential crisis of leadership, a hole, I think would when I was a state rep, the speaker passed the upskirting bill in 36 hours. That was where you can't take a picture of a woman's skirt with your camera or cell phone or something. That passed in 36 hours. This is something that, if the legislature wants it to move very quickly, it can move very quickly. I think it should. I think we have a good case to make it happen.
Thank you. I guess I'm not really sure if I feel like there's as much of an urgency, because I feel like your first sentence when you stated it was previously thought that this is what would happen. I think that the whole council is kind of been operating that way. So,
but legally, we don't have the legal authority to operate under what we thought, because we have to go by what the legal authority is, and the city charter doesn't say that your thought gives you the ability to have the council president be the interim mayor if a vacancy has occurred. If the council president, if we were to do that, and the public somebody in the public were to protest that, they would, say, look, council president gave the police chief an order to do this, and that was, the council president didn't have the legal authority to give the police chief to do this, and therefore what the police chief and the police department didn't have, any, grounds to be done in the first place. The city solicitor and I are in agreement about that, just because you think you have the legal authority to do something, you don't necessarily have it. You actually have to have it in writing somewhere where you have and the charter doesn't give anybody the legal authority to sign payroll right now, so that's a problem.
Council Waterman, then Council Conti, then Council Reynolds.
My question was going to be about the state legislature and their role. I think that's been answered.
Thank you. Council Conti.
So Mayor, have you or the city solicitor given any thought of what if the legislature do not act in time?
I'm not concerned about that. I think they'll act in time because if, again, in time for this should not be thought of as what if I vacate the office for another officer. Please don't think of it like that. If I get hit by a bus or have a heart attack or die, this is a problem now. I mean, this is something that we have to have succession planning right now. If we were the federal government and we didn't have a succession plan, and the president, there wouldn't be an actual commander in chief. We don't actually have a vice president under this circumstance. So again, this is just an honest oversight by the founders, the writers of the charter, not the founders, the individuals who wrote the charter. But it's something that we have to stress urgency with the legislature. That again, there's a hole. It's not about. It's not about what might happen in January of 2023. It's what the hole that we have right now. I mean, it's again, we don't want to wait. It's like what the fire chief always says. It's not a problem until it's a problem. Well, if something happens to the mayor, and that happens to be me right now, we would have a crisis. And it could have happened to another mayor in the past. Another mayor could have died. But again, this is we need to have succession planning written out right now, and I think that's the legislature. They passed upskirting in 36 hours. The municipalities committee is a rubber stamp committee, generally speaking, and they say, okay, this is what the municipality wants to do. We're going to let them do it. They rush it right through. I'm not concerned about it.
Council Conchi, follow up?
Yes, please. So would you be opposed, Mr. Mayor, for us to be working on a contingency plan should the legislature take such a long time?
No, of course not. I'm not opposed to contingency planning, but it's, this is, I don't know what you have in mind for a contingency plan.
I don't have anything in mind, but I do know government is slow.
Yeah, well, I mean, government is usually slow, and there's good reason for that. But in this case, I think, like I said, there is a gap in the succession planning, and we can't have that. I mean, forget what could happen. I mean, that's what brought this to our attention. I admit that. But even if I let's just say if I lose that race and I finish out my full 2 years, this provision might not get triggered. But what if it still does get triggered? Again, we can't treat this like it's not that important. He's gonna win, or he'll stick around. Or what if I get hit by that bus? What if I have that heart attack? I know I keep saying that, but we have a lot at stake here. I mean, we're running a city together, and again, it's something that we really have to stress a sense of urgency, because you have to have that continuity of leadership. You can't have a situation where the department heads aren't taking orders from somebody. I mean, not that barking out orders, but you have to have that where the buck stops with that one person. I mean, right now, the way the charter is written, it doesn't give that legal authority to the council president like we thought it does. It's just an honest oversight.
Council Conchi, follow up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. Mayor, during this conversations with the city solicitor, did it occur to you that we're exposed currently?
We are exposed currently, absolutely, yeah.
And did that not occur to you that maybe we should take some contingency action?
Well, that's what we're doing right now, is we're looking to change the charter, and that's why I said something.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I fully understand what we're doing. What I'm concerned with is, and I know you've been in the legislature and have full faith that this is going to go flying through the legislature, and I don't. So I'm asking if you and the city solicitor gave any thought to a contingency, even short term. You win the lottery tomorrow and buy Pacific Island, we don't have a mayor.
That's another possibility. That's a good point. So, I mean, I finish out the term if I win the lottery, but no, it is, we kick around ideas, and the best course of action is the current course that we're on right now. That's the best course of action. It is, the charter has a hole in it, and so to fix the situation, address the hole in the charter. And so, yeah, this is actually the best course of action, and this is the strongest course of action. That's why, the city solicitor and I are proposing this as the course of action.
Councilor Reynolds.
So, I would go along also with Councilor Conti that there should be some intermediate action if in fact it did not go through, but couldn't we, Mayor, as a council, offer a plan for the changes in the charter that is different, the succession plan that would read that we go first to a council president. He may say, or she may say no. So our next choice would be the vice president, because those are the two leaders of the council. And then if that person were then in fact to say no, then we go to the rest of the council and pick a person at that point. But we're going to the council president always, I would think, first in succession, to the vice president, second in succession, and then the rest of the council members. And to me, and I'm asking you, why wouldn't that plan, or my fellow councilors, why wouldn't that plan be just as good? You're trying to fill in a void that was left, and to me, so why don't we fill in the void by using the people that were originally we thought it was going to be? Why are we going to then turn around and do everything opposite of what I feel would be the proper succession?
Yeah, well, it's, the important thing is that we close this gap. That's the important thing.
I agree, that's what I'm saying. So we could close that gap in this manner, maybe your manner, but in this manner as well, by choosing what we think is the right succession, correct?
I mean, it's the manner in which we do it really doesn't matter, as long as that somebody would be able to sign payroll and be there to have the buck stop with that one person. The reason I'm proposing what I'm proposing, city solicitor and I, we hashed this out for more than an hour at this point. It creates symmetry with the intent of the writers of the charter, so that section 3.8a and 3.8b match. So our understanding, what we previously believed, in my opinion, is kind of irrelevant. Maybe it's relevant to you guys, and that's fine. I think that it's actually slightly irrelevant. But again, we can have it be the council president. That doesn't matter to me. It really, I would, in my own sense of, what is probably best for the city, is to have it be a vote of the council. Of somebody from the council, by the council, because that gives you, the council, flexibility. Because you might, like I said before, you might elect a council, like we have to think about the future. We have a good council president right now, but in the future there might be buyer's remorse, where you have a council president that you say, gosh, we have buyer's remorse. We don't want this council president to be the president anymore. Now, by default, they're automatically becoming the mayor. I think if you go for the vote of the council to choose somebody from the council still retains the power, but what you're doing is you're giving yourself the flexibility to choose who it is. And I think that flexibility is very important. I think to remove that flexibility is actually short-sighted. I think keeping the flexibility open for the future is going to be very important. I have no doubt that Councilor DeLucio would, if I win the lottery and I go off to a foreign island, then he would, have the votes to become the interim mayor. I have no doubt of that, and I think that's fine. But like I said, I think that having the flexibility is just very important. It would behoove the council to have the flexibility. You're no worse off having the flexibility, but you've tied your hands by not having the flexibility to choose somebody other than the council president.
Councilor Reynolds, follow up?
So I would just suggest back to what you're saying about the flexibility and everything, that in most forms of government, there is a detailed succession of who it is going to be. And I would go back to, I do think we have to fill this gap, but I think it's important to remain with that succession that we do, president, vice president, and then a council member, because the president, and I ask you this, the vice president, mayor, are the people that we vote in because we think they will do the best job. And not end up doing it, as you're saying, they may not end up doing it, and that gives you flexibility, but you never know who is going to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Take your chances, and I'm just saying, that's all my comments, that's all I have.
Yeah, no, I
Council
see
Waterman?
what you're saying.
Council
No, I see what
Waterman?
you're saying. You know, to the point of that though, the city charter in section 3(8)(b).
I understand that.
Yeah,
Mayor.
so you have that consistency with it. That's what I'm seeking to achieve, is the symmetry and the consistency within the section 3(8) of the charter. And I think that's, you know, having it be consistent where it goes to the vote. I mean, it's just, we're having a difference of opinion, it's fine.
Yes, we are, that's all. So, with all due respect, I understand what you're
Yep.
saying, just difference of opinion and.
Yeah, neither one is right.
Yeah, and, Mayor, I don't want to be arguing this point on the floor right now.
I'm out of line, I'm sorry.
No worries. I think it's a healthy conversation to have. I think this is something we haven't seen before, so thank you both. Councilor Waterman.
Yes, Mayor, has,
Ty, can you speak into the microphone?
oh, excuse me.
Thank you, sir.
I was curious if anybody, or perhaps you, Mayor, thought about talking to members of the commission that reviewed the charter, I think it was in the 90s, late 90s, and what they saw when they reviewed this section.
No, I haven't talked to them. I didn't think it was relevant, because if they saw that there was a hole, I would have thought that they would have filled the hole, that they would have closed the gap. This is, I mean, Attleboro was incorporated as a city in 1914, and so we have been going on for 108 years with this hole in the charter, and nobody's seen it before. And I've been mayor for 4 years, and I didn't see it either. Mayor Dumas was mayor for 14 years. He never saw it, and he saw it. He saw everything. And he was really astute, you know. So it's an honest oversight, and I'm just looking to close that gap and make it as consistent within that section as possible. But honestly, it doesn't really matter what we do. We just have to. I mean, it matters. I mean, but you know, we have to close that hole. You know, if the council were to send me an amended version of this and says, you know, we're going to do what Ms. Reynolds just said, I'm not going to veto that. I'm going to send it right up to the State House and say, get this through as soon as possible. You know, because we need to close that hole. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to, you know, fuss about it. I want to close the hole. I propose what I think is the best way, because the consistency, the symmetry, the flexibility, you know, but I'm only one voice among 12.
Vice President Corbis, then Council Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor Hurrow, for joining us again. And I'll ask this question of you, but it may be better directed towards the city solicitor, so feel free to defer it. But my question is, what makes you believe that Section 3(7) in the temporary absence doesn't apply to what I feel would be a temporary absence between when the mayor permanently vacates the office until we have the special election and a new mayor is elected? Isn't that a temporary absence as well?
No. What it is, the definition of a temporary absence is absence means that mayor, that particular person, is coming back. In a vacancy, that particular person is not coming back. I mean, even so, what you're saying is there's a temporary. You know, again, look at the word vacancy. Vacancy means the mayor's not coming back, so therefore, you know, it's vacant. It's a vacant position. Absence means the person's coming back. And the writers of the founders of the charter, the writers of it, they said that they recognized that difference between somebody coming back versus somebody not coming back. And it's in, you know, so what you're trying to do is stretch the definition in Section 3(7) to apply to 3(8). But the lawyers aren't going to look at it like that. Our own city solicitor doesn't look at it like that. the founders of the charter, the writers of the charter, didn't look at it like that. In the language of the charter, it says a vacancy is death or resignation, and absence is, by definition, temporary. So what you're doing is you're conflating the two things that the writers of the charter very clearly separated in different sections. But don't take my word for it. You can talk to the city solicitor.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, the section 3.7 does not apply to section 3.8 when a vacancy happens. And if we were to get sued because an action taken by, like the council president, then tries to apply it, we're going to lose that 10 out of 10 times in court. We're not going to win that. The council president, if a mayor vacates it, the council president does not have the legal authority. It's written in our own charter. This is the definition of vacant. This is the definition of, absent. They're two different things.
Councilor Bennett?
Hi, good evening, Mayor. I just have one quick question. Oh, I don't know if it's a quick question, but looking at the way that this is drafted, it looks as though it's creating the procedure within A to have the council election under that limited circumstance. Paragraph B below that, the way that it's currently written, deals with the vacancies occurring during the last 9 months, and it lays out the process there. So procedurally, that is in B. But then when you go down to paragraph C, the term of the office says whenever a mayor is chosen in the manner provided by section 3-8B, so referring to what currently exists, he shall serve until the next regular city election. Do you think, is it your opinion that you think the language proposed here for A is sufficient enough to not create confusion here, where using the council election process won't then trigger C, or using that same process won't trigger C for the term of office, and end up filling that gap through the end of what would have been the term, rather than through the date of the special election, or the new mayor being sworn in?
It's a really good question, and there's a lot of moving parts here, so it can be very tricky to keep up with. I know, in my office, Kathy, Allison, solicitor, we really spent a lot of time on this because there are a lot of different permutations and combinations and stuff. So, what I'm proposing is that we amend section 3.8A, and that's all we're amending. And what we do is, once a vacancy occurs, the council then chooses someone from the council to be the interim mayor. And at the same time, that's what where the gap is. We don't have that. But at the same time, the council calls for a special election to happen 8 to 10 weeks into the future. And if you talk to the elections office, there's a lot of regulations and state regulation laws around that. Just the timeline, it ends up being about 8 to 10 weeks. So let's just say, 8 to 10 weeks to pull off a special election. So the interim mayor, whoever the council chooses, is that person until the special election happens. And the people, the citizens of Attleboro, the voters of Attleboro, they choose who the mayor is going to be. And now that they've chosen who the mayor is going to be, then we have to get the results certified. It takes a few more days. I think it's about a week or so. And then that city council member goes back to the council, and then that new mayor is sworn in until the end of that term. So the next regular election, it's not a special, it's a regular election, happens in November of the 2-year term, the second year of the 2-year term, and then that mayor continues to serve, and then the mayor who is elected by the people, in November, that person starts, basically like we had this year, January 4th. That's what we did this year. I think it was January 4th. So that's my understanding of how that goes. Now, if the council wants to further amend that and say, well, no, the person who, the acting mayor is only going to be the mayor until the real election happens in November, and then the real election happens in November, and that person gets sworn in, and then the acting mayor goes back. That's more changes we have to make within the charter. And, I think we're actually complicating something that, is beyond the scope of what we need to complicate. So Could we do it? Yeah, we could. I don't think we need to. I think that whoever the council chooses, I think whoever the people choose, that's who they choose for the duration of that term. And basically, at the end of December, beginning of January, they serve. That's just, I guess, I don't think we need to go beyond that, but that's, up for discussion.
Thank you, appreciate the clarification.
Any other questions for the mayor? Seeing none, Mayor, thank you for coming down this evening on both topics.
Very good, thanks all. Good seeing you all.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in favor?
The solicitor, if she wishes to speak, if not, I'll approach.
I'm asking for anyone who's in favor.
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Jack Jacoby, 15 Prince Street. I am not here acting as a lawyer tonight, but simply as a citizen. I just want to make that clear. I also want to make it clear that my comments tonight are not personal to any mayor or any council president or vice president, but I've given this matter a lot of thought since the mayor sent it down, and I agree with much of what he said and much of what the solicitor has said. I think the problem, if I can restate it for you, is that the way the charter is written, I think there's no choice but for the council president, even if there's a permanent vacancy, to assume the role. The problem I see is that 10 taxpayers could file a lawsuit and challenge that. And now we have a judge deciding. And if we have the opportunity to clear up the vagueness ourselves and not leave it in the hands of a judge or an appellate court after that, with that attendant delay and uncertainty, my opinion is we ought to do that. We ought to take this opportunity to fix the problem so that we don't end up in a court somewhere. So I agree very much with what the mayor is saying, is that you could end up with a challenge, and so we ought to avoid that. I have a slightly different take on 37A because and I gave it in Word to Virginia. I also handed out a package to Virginia to give to everyone. I hope you all got it. What I did was I put together my proposal with a copy of what the mayor sent down, with a copy of the relevant sections of the charter, so you could have it all in one place available when you have a chance to think about this. But my thought is that we ought to amend 37A, and to be clear, whenever by reason of death, disability, resignation, physical absence from the city, or any other cause that shall prevent the mayor from discharging the duties of the office of mayor, the president of the municipal council, or in the event of his or her disability, the vice president shall serve as acting mayor during such time as the mayor shall be disabled, unable to serve, or absent from the city, or until the vacancy is filled pursuant to section 3.8 or 3.8A or 3.8B. So I added here absence from the city because it's my understanding that that's the way we've always done things, is that when the mayor, whoever it may be, is absent from the city, the council president becomes acting mayor, even if it's just for a weekend. And so I added that because I realized that that seemed to be missing here too. I also had a different take, rather than having the council elect from its members the way the mayor said, was to say it automatically becomes the council president or vice president. I'm not as tied to that as I am to clearing up the ambiguity. So whatever decision you as a council make, I don't have a problem with, but I did want to give you an alternative way to look at it. Where I see the bigger problem is in 9.5, which provides that there's no preliminary election if we have a special election. And I foresee, and maybe it's because I'm trained to see all the things that can go wrong rather than all the things that can go right, but I can see that if we have a half a dozen candidates running for mayor in a special election, and we end up with 20% of the voters showing up, that 8% of the electorate of the city could elect a mayor for a significant period of time. So my opinion is that if we're going to clean up things, we should clean that up by getting rid of it. And then what I did was I looked at 3.8A, and it says that if there's a vacancy more than 9 months, then the council shall forthwith call an election. Well, forthwith is one of those great legal terms that means everything and means nothing. And so the question then is, what does that mean? Does that mean you have to have a special meeting the next day? So I said in here for your consideration, well, it should be at the next council meeting that you should do it, so that we know when that has to occur. And I also provided that the council would require nomination papers to be filed with the city clerk in no less than 30 days nor more than 45 days. And by the way, these are timeframes I just made up, so please feel free to choose whatever you think. But what I wanted to do was lay out the procedure. And if there are more than 2 candidates who are certified for the special election in no less than 60, no more than 75 days, hold that special election. And a final election be held in no less than 21 days, nor more than 30 days after the preliminary, if one is held, or not less than 45 nor more than 60 days from the day nomination papers are due, if no preliminary election is held. So, in my opinion, that would lay out a procedure so everybody would know what the timeframes were, everybody would know when they had to file their nomination papers, when we would have a preliminary if needed, when we would have a final. It would also allow for whoever might be the acting mayor to know that it's a defined period of time that that person would be serving. And because I recognize that a lot of you people have day jobs, and whoever might be the acting mayor would have a problem. I remember when Judy Robbins had her stroke, that Benny Keene was able to obtain leave of absence and was able to serve. And so I think we were just fairly lucky in that case. So my pitch to you is actually twofold. One is, I think we should have a charter commission, and we should take a serious look at a lot of different things in our charter, things like our 2-year election cycle and other things. But I think that we ought to fix things in the interim. I think the mayor is absolutely right about that. And I think that I'm just giving you an alternative way of looking at things so that whatever choice you make, we can make sure that we vetted all of the possibilities. And that's my take on things.
Thank you, Jack, as always. Do we have any questions for Jack? Seeing none, Jack, thank you as always.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else speak in favor? City Solicitor Mara, nice to see you.
See you too. Hello to everyone out there. I just want to say a couple of things to clarify a few things. One, I have not had an opportunity to really look at Jack's proposal. I've only seen it late this afternoon at a minimum, just to glance at it. I do think there are more than one ways that the city could fix the problem. I think, as everyone has said, the important thing is to fix the problem as soon as it got spotted. Essentially, that's why we're here now, because it's just been spotted. I will say that there is a definite distinction in the process that the charter creators put in place for a temporary absence or a more routine absence like vacations or leaving the city and coming back versus a permanent vacancy. And for whatever reason, right, wrong, or otherwise, it was determined that in the temporary arena, it's clear cut, it's cut and dry, we don't want discussion, it's going to be the council president, and if that person can't do it, it'll be the next in line. When it comes to filling the vacancy, however, a completely different process was put in place. And that was, I agree with Jack that forthwith is a horrible word, and I do agree that there might be some reason to say no later than the next scheduled meeting, because I wouldn't want to foreclose your ability to move even faster, because you probably would want to. That being said, without looking more deeply at what Jack has proposed, that's the only thing I'm going to substantively comment about what he said, is I do agree with that. But I do think it is a decision how you want to proceed from here. But there is something to be said that for whatever reason, when it was a permanent vacancy that was being filled, the thinking at the time was that the council as a whole will meet and decide who they think is the best person to fill that vacancy, be it
because of the length of the vacancy that they'll fill till the next election, or because there is this length of time that you need before you can have an election that they just omitted, there's some reason to say, okay, treat it the same way. But I can't stand up in front of you and tell you that you have to do it that way. So that's all I wanted to clarify, and I'm more than happy to discuss any changes or amendments with anybody on this topic. And I don't necessarily think that contingency plans might not be inconsistent with, you might want to have a temporary emergency. We tried to look at what we could do. You might want to spend some time and look hard and long at what you might be able to do in your own interim before you could get special legislation passed.
Okay.
But that's really all I had to say.
All right, thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mrs. Solicitor. I am so happy to hear you talk about a contingency for the vacancy, because I think that the council should take action. This is a gap. This is obvious. Well, Cynthia, what steps do we need to take to start a contingency plan?
I think the approach the mayor has set up by going to the special legislation is probably your quickest way. I also tried to see if within your own framework there is a way you couldn't argue that legally you fit within temporary absence. Push comes to shove, I would prefer not to have to defend that in a lawsuit. I have not been asked to look at what type of contingency measures might also be possible in the interim. I'm happy to take a look at that or work with anyone on this proposition. But as I stand here now, I can't answer that because I've not looked at what the realm of temporary intermediate measures you could take until such time as you could get special legislation through.
Councilor Conti, follow-up.
Well, Mr. President, help me out here. I feel that the council has the responsibility to engage in a contingency for the vacancy while the special legislation is in order, in a manner that will not put the city in a defenseless position in a lawsuit. Can we ask the city solicitor to provide us with a roadmap?
I'm not sure as that's, I defer that one, Councilor Conti, to the city solicitor to see what she's able to do.
I don't know, number one, if I have any authority to answer that question, number one. Number two, I think it would be most helpful for somebody from the council, or maybe someone from the council in the mayor's office, it doesn't really matter who, but more than just me, to provide me with insight as to what types of things you might be looking at, and to sort of give me some direction as to what you might want to be trying to do. And I will look at certain parts of the charter in the back of my mind are things I might want to look at to see if they could work. I'm not going to say yes or no right now because I don't want to give you any false hope or mislead you whether something may or may not be possible. But I think there might be some room to at least try to come up with an interim until, in the event that this doesn't go through quickly.
So what I would say, and thank you for that explanation, I appreciate it. Councilor Conti, what I would do is, should we close this tonight, we have this discussion next Tuesday in Councilor DeSimone's committee, and we see what comes out of it there. From there, we very well may find new business to introduce on March 1st. Councilor DeSimone, then Vice President Kobus.
Yes, thank you very much. Cindy, thank you for coming down. Two quick questions, if I may. So in researching this issue in general, I've come across several municipalities that have similar language, and I think to some degree, our charter is very much like other home rule charters. This appears to be, we're not the only ones with this issue. And I don't know if you've come across it, but I don't want to throw the drafters under the bus because this is not unusual language, as awkward as it might be. But my question is this. Inasmuch as the charter does not directly address the particular issue of which we're speaking, is it not possible to draft an ordinance that does so as a provisionary emergency measure, if you will. And the reason I'm thinking it's feasible is because we would not be in conflict with the charter, because the charter is in fact silent on that period. Do you think that's a possible Band-Aid?
To be perfectly honest with you, in the back of my mind, that's where my head was at. I haven't looked at it closely enough to give you a definitive answer, but I will say that my thinking was somewhat along those lines as a Band-Aid approach. And the reason ultimately you would want it to be Band-Aid, if it can be done, is because then it's too easy to change. You know, you've got the stability of a charter change that doesn't subject it to the whims of the time as easily as an ordinance. But that is exactly one of the types of things I think might be helpful.
And my concern, and let me know, I know this is your line of work, but my concern is these are not ideal conditions under which, in my opinion, to make a change of this import. So I think we need to be surgical in this approach, handle and resolve only the issue at hand and address larger issues when we have more time and to be careful and thoughtful about that. So I'm trying to be very precision in my approach to do this. So I think perhaps I'm going to look down that line of ordinance, some way to identify or determine someone who can have the agency and the authority to do the legal acts that need to be done. And perhaps that's something we can consider moving forward when we get to committee next week. So I think we'll be talking to you again on this matter. So thank you for coming down.
Thank you, Vice President Kobus.
Thank you, and thank you for coming down. Same question that I asked for the mayor about, is it possible to interpret the temporary absences, meaning the absence between when the mayor's office is permanently vacated and the 3-8B, we have the special election to elect a new mayor. Could that be perceived as the temporary absence and fall within 3-7? And then the other question is, for these other communities that have the same language, is there precedent in those other communities where they've interpreted 3-7 to mean that as far as a temporary absence?
I'll take them in reverse order. I don't have an answer on the second question for you. This is not something that comes up very often. And not every city or town has a charter at all, let alone have to act on what might be a hole in their charter, because you don't usually find it until it's less than optimum to do so. But I don't have an answer for you on that. In terms of the first one, I'd have to say I tried to think down that path too initially when this came up, is like, can we try to do this? And, short of anything else, push comes to shove, if someone had to make that argument, I'd have to make the argument. Would I want to defend that argument? Do I think it's a winner of an argument? Do I think it's something that should be perceived as even a Band-Aid? No. That's my personal opinion. I think it's pretty clear that temporary means temporary, and it's a temporary absence, and it doesn't even include temporary vacancy, because it's a permanent vacancy. I tried to think that way, and I just don't think it is a good option.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Solicitor Amara? Okay, thank you so much.
Nice to see you all.
I would suspect you'll be hearing from us.
I bet I will.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak against? Please make your way to the podium, sir.
Good evening, President Delicio, members of the council, those of you at home, City Clerk, City Clerk. My name is Frank Cook, 32 Division Street, Attleboro. I have a few comments that I'd like to make. Been following this issue with a lot of interest in recent weeks, and I do have, with the President's permission, I would like to have Virginia make a copy of my comments so that all councilors will be able to peruse this at their leisure.
I'd appreciate that.
Before I get to my own prepared comments, just listening to some of the items that were presented tonight. First, as all of you know, I served 18 years on this council. So that meant on 9 occasions I voted for the president and I voted for the vice president. And when I was first approached about running for president, looking at the charter, I knew that if I agreed, and if my colleagues put me in that position, that the day may come when I would have to step up and be president. And I can tell you that even before I was ever thinking of running for council president, when I was sitting there for my first term, I realized that whoever I was voting for could very easily be in a position where they would become the acting mayor for a lengthy period of time. I was elected in 1999. Shortly before that, we had a mayor who had a stroke and was out a long time. And the council president, as was mentioned, Benny Keene, stepped in and became the council president, acting council president. So I was always aware of that. And I always expected, and I still expect as a citizen of the city, that when the councilors elect their leaders, they have that in mind, that that person that they put in that center seat could very well be sitting in that corner office for months at a time. Right? This one. Second, I am bothered by, the comments directed at the people of the city, some very learned people who have stepped forward in the past, going back to 1914, and in subsequent years, and served on the Charter Commission or worked on the charter. I don't believe that they made a mistake, that they missed this, that it was something that was waiting to be found. And I think very clearly when you look at section 3-7, 3-8, the other responsibilities of the mayor's office, right? They were talking about the office of the mayor. And I will address part of this in my comments. I would agree with my dear friend, Attorney Jacoby, who I've known for a long time, in the various capacities that I've had in the city, about the need for perhaps a charter commission moving forward. It's been a few years. We haven't had one in this century, so I think that would be very appropriate. And I can tell you from I'm now getting older, all right? My hair's a little lighter, a little thinner from when I first started. I was in my 30s when I first got involved in the city. I'm now in my 70s. It's been a long time. I've seen a lot of mayors. I've seen a lot of change. I've seen a lot of councils. I've been through a lot. And one of the things that has come to my mind, and I think the opportunity presents itself in 2 years, when the office of the mayor will be vacant, is that maybe with a charter commission, I think the time has come, and this is not a reflection on the current mayor or those that have served prior, but I think that the city should give serious consideration to making a substantial change in our form of government to do away with the office of mayor and replace it with a city administrator who is trained by education and by experience to be in that position, that's appointed by the municipal council, reports to the municipal council. All these other issues we've been talking about would go away in that case. Just throwing that out. Now to my remarks. And again, I have copies of this that, with your permission,
please,
I'd like to have Virginia distribute. I address this to the president and to all of the council members. Tonight I return to these chambers where I served 18 years as a city councilor, the final 10 years as council president, to oppose not only the proposed amendment to Article 3, Section 3-8A of the city charter, but also the procedure by which this would be done. To begin, I want to emphasize that during my 10 years as council president, I spent a few weeks each year as acting mayor. In fact, I have spent more time this century as Attleboro's acting mayor than any other person. Among the actions I took was signing warrants so city employees could be paid, providing guidance to department heads when requested, interacting with state and federal officers, including at a major public safety incident, responding to print and electronic media requests, signing countless documents. I've often thought if my heirs ever decide to, or my descendants ever start tracing family history and they want to know what I've done, they're going to find thousands of documents with my signature on it between being on the council and the planning board and being in leadership positions with both of them. And also, even sending the mayor's communication to the municipal council. In accordance with the charter, I performed all the responsibilities of the office of mayor to ensure the safe, proper, and consistent operation of the city. I've heard in recent weeks the various actions that supposedly an acting mayor cannot do, but I wanted each of you to know what this acting mayor actually did. Relative to the procedure, I am in opposition to that. If passed by your honorable body and signed by the mayor, as we heard, this message will be sent to Boston, where state legislators will make the decision, a decision in which just one Attleboro representative, one Attleboro resident, Representative Jim Hawkins, will be voting. In my opinion, this is just plain wrong. I don't like the precedent that this is setting of going to the state to make amendments in our city charter. It's astonishing to consider that more than 90% of the people making the decision involving the highest elected position in the city have never been here and probably never will be coming to Attleboro. And yet we're asking them to make this decision for us. Charter changes, I believe, should be made by elected officials working in, charter changes should not be made by elected officials working in unison with other outside elected officials. Instead, changes should be decided by our citizens in the voting booth, which is the way we have made other changes in our charter in the past. In the words of the Constitution, we the people, deciding how we want our city to be run. To invoke the spirit, but not the words, of Red Sox champion David Ortiz, this is our city, and no outsider has the right to tell us how to run our city. However, if the council decides to approve this measure, I respectfully and strongly recommend that an amendment be made that will instead put this item on the November ballot. That election is more than 8 months from now, and there's plenty of time to make that happen. As you know, this is the same election that will decide whether the proposed amendment will actually be needed, in the immediate future. Regarding the proposed amendment itself, I want to emphasize that this is completely unnecessary, as the charter provides clear direction for situations when the mayor, I want to emphasize this point, for any cause, as it says in the charter, is unable to perform the duties of that office. At times I wonder if for many people our charter is simply an old remnant from the early 20th century, just sitting on a shelf, collecting dust, unused, more fit for a museum than guiding a 21st century city. I wonder how many people know that the League of Women Voters was instrumental in the formation of an elected charter commission charged, quote, to frame or revise the charter, end quote, back in the 1970s. I wonder how many people know that the chair of that commission later became one of our greatest mayors, Judy Robbins. It is actually Judy Robbins' time as mayor that proves that this amendment is unnecessary. In 1996-1997, Mayor Robbins suffered a stroke, but returned to the corner office after a 6-month rehabilitation. 6-month rehabilitation. When this tragic event occurred, it was unknown how long she would be sidelined, or even if she would be able to return. Key point to remember, we didn't know if she was going to come back. We didn't know how long she was going to be out. She was out in rehab for 6 months. During her 6-month absence, did the city shut down? No. Did city employees receive their regular paycheck? Yes. Did department heads receive direction from the mayor's office? Yes. Did all of the other issues that fall under the purview of the mayor's office be handled efficiently and properly? Yes. There was continuity in the mayor's office because the charter provided for just such an eventuality, just as it does with a possible situation that may occur after this November's election. In section 3-7, we've heard mention of that tonight, called temporary absence from office of mayor, it specifies that the council president or the council vice president, if the president is unable, shall become the acting mayor whenever the mayor, and I want to emphasize these words from the charter, for any cause, is unable to perform the duties of that office. This is the guiding document used today. For example, when the mayor goes on vacation, away for a weekend. That is where our marching orders come from. Yet, the charter did anticipate that a longer absence could occur and provided further instruction. Section 3-7B states that, quote, "The acting mayor shall have all the rights and powers of the mayor," end quote. Again, acting mayor shall have all the rights and powers of the mayor. However, the section also provides limitations, such as the inability to make permanent appointments or removals during the first 60 days. There's also guidance in that part of the charter on the compensation for the acting mayor after serving in that capacity for 15 days. It is clear from the reading of section 3-7 that the charter anticipated not only the possibility that a mayor might be unable to fulfill the duties of the office, but also that such an absence could extend longer than 2 months. The charter specified who would handle the mayor's responsibilities, emphasizing the acting mayor shall have all the rights and powers of the mayor. In essence, this person is the mayor when the specific limitations and compensation are also considered. When Mayor Robbins had her stroke, she was away from the office for 6 months, half a year. I want to emphasize at this point, this is a much greater amount of time than is anticipated between the possible resignation of the mayor, pending the election in November, and the subsequent special election required in section 3-8. On a side note, I do find it interesting that the structure of the charter provides the vacancy election guidelines after the temporary absence provision, and I don't think that was accidental. Lastly, another reason why this proposed amendment is not needed can be seen in one of the actions that Mayor Robbins took upon returning from her lengthy absence. In 1998, she appointed a special committee to review and recommend changes to the charter. This language is remarkably similar to the charge given to the Charter Commission that she chaired almost 3 decades earlier. Certainly, it can be argued that her recent experience and how the city was managed during her absence was on her mind. That special committee did not recommend any changes to these 2 sections of the charter. Logically, it can be deduced that section 3-7 had been designed for that recent experience and had successfully met the challenge. The scenario we may encourage after November is similar, and this section, as designed, will once again serve the city well. In closing, I would respectfully ask that you all vote no on this proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, President Cook. Do we have any questions for Mr. Cook? Any questions for Mr. Cook? Councilor Conti.
Mr. President, it sounded like Mr. Cook was reading, and I would like him to give a copy of the script to our assistant. The audio is less than perfect, and I may have missed some of the words that he was pronouncing. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. We've already established that former President Cook will leave his notes with Virginia, but thank you for raising. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, President Cook. Always good to see you in these chambers.
Good luck.
Anyone else to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor DeSimone, would you like to declare this public hearing closed?
Yes.
This public hearing is closed. That ends the public hearings. It's been a couple hours. Would we like to entertain a recess to take a quick 5-minute break?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor will have a roll call vote, I believe, beginning with Council Waterman.
Council Waterman.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Vice President Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. Deesel.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
Yeas, 0 nays.
We are in recess. We will be I would like to call the municipal council back to order at 9:16. Currently, on camera, we have Councilor Dolan, Councilor Reynolds, Councilor DeSimone, Councilor Holmes, Councilor Conti. In the chambers, currently, we have Councilor Angelo, Councilor Bennett, Councilor Waterman, Councilor Vice President Conti is, Vice President Kobus is making his way. We'll now go on to the reading of the mayor's communication. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, sir. February 15th, 2022, dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the following reappointments for the positions and for the terms as indicated. Kathy Garapi, Conservation Commission, 3-year term, term expires February 2025. Douglas Green, Cultural Council, 3-year term expires February 2025.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the following appointments, positions, and for terms as indicated. Randall Vincent, Inspector of Wiring, 3-year term to expire February 2025. David O'Brien, Alternate Inspector of Wiring, a 1-year term, February 2023. Stephen New, Assistant Inspector of Gas Piping and Gas Appliances, 3-year, February 2025. Cynthia Mara, City Solicitor, 1-year term to expire February 2023. Dorothy Brissett, Community Development Director, 2-year term, February 2024. Ben Quell, Director of Veteran Services, Veteran Agent, Burial Agent, 2-year term to expire February 2024. Scott LeChamp, Forest Warden, term of 1 year, term to expire February 2023. Christopher Quinn, Health Officer, 1-year term, February 2023. Kyle Hagney, Lockup Keeper, 1-year term, February 2023. Kathy Rigo, Parking Administrator, 1-year term, February 23. Derek Corsi, Superintendent of Park and Forestry, 3-year term, February 2025.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Derek Corsi at 467 7 Mile Road, Hope, Rhode Island, to fill an expired term as the Superintendent of Insect Pest Control, term to expire February 2025.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services, please.
For your information, the following reappointments have been made to positions for which confirmation is not required and for the terms as indicated. Jeffrey Kiefer, Dog Officer, 1-year term, February 2023. Carolyn Eaton, Dog Officer, 1-year term, term to expire February 2023.
It's an
I
FY.
respect communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding a printer that the Assessor's Office would like to declare as surplus. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for disposition. Copies in your packets. Item is a printer, HP LaserJet 9050DN. Serial number is JPR C977041, and it's in very poor condition.
Just a quick point of order. It's a T at the end and not a 1, and that'll go to City Property and Claims.
Thank you very much for the correction.
Quite welcome, my friend.
I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding items that the Recreation Department would like to declare as surplus. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for disposition. Copies in your packets. Item is a gym lockers, fair to poor condition, exercise equipment, fair condition.
City Property and Claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding items that the Police Department would like to declare as surplus. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for dispositions. Copies in your packets. A 2011 Dodge Charger, VIN number 2B3CL1CT7BH597891, 84,790 miles. It is in poor condition. 2014 Ford Explorer, VIN number 1FM5KHAR8EGC26650 with 118,495 miles in poor condition, and a 2007 Fisher Minute Mount 2. No VIN number available, no miles available, it's in poor condition.
City Property and Claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Recreation Dennis Walsh regarding the need for funds to cover the cost of price increases in supplies and services over the past 6 months. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $17,620.50 from account 1630100-511000 recreation salary and wages to the following: $12,500 to account 1630100-546012 recreation supplies, recreation grounds, $5,120.50 to account 1630100-530101 recreation professional services. Copies in your packet.
Public Works, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Budget and Administration Jeremy Stowe regarding the need to fund the added grade 9 solid waste manager for the remainder of fiscal year 22. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $23,776.48 from account 1124100-578300 Statewide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1510100-511000 Health Department salary and wages full-time. Upon approval, the available balance in reserve fund for transfer to include any pending requests would be $5,667.68. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services, please.
I recently submit a communication from Director of Planning and Development, Gary Arazian, regarding the receipt of Green Communities Grant of approximately $186,629 from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Emergency Affairs, EOEEA, in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the Revised Ordinances of the City of Attleboro. I hereby request your honorable body to approve the expenditure of such funds and also approve any further grant amendments. Copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Library Director Amy Brillinger regarding the donation of 20 laptop computers to the Attleboro Public Library. Your honorable body to accept this generous donation to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Budget and Administration, Jeremy Stowe, regarding the executed memorandum of agreement with the Attleboro Laborers Association, which covers fiscal years 2021 through 2023. Additional funding is needed in order to complete this agreement. It is our intention to implement the new wage scale once funding is approved on the payroll of March 10th, 2022, and process retro payments and one-time payments on the payroll of March 17th, 2022. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $72,187.11 from account 1124100-578-350 Citywide Reserve Fund for labor negotiations to accounts.
We'll waive the reading on the rest of this, Councilor Jackson. Whoa, old school. Clerk Jackson.
And that's going to be referred to.
That'll go to Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services.
Thank you for that break. I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Park and Forestry, Derek Corsi, regarding the needs for funds to purchase a new prefabricated ticket booth, Hidden Park Zoo, in order to make a permanent main entrance point. At the start of the pandemic in 2020, the zoo was forced to use its auxiliary side entrance as a main entrance point for zoo patrons. Over that time frame, this new setup has been very beneficial to the zoo. By separating the entrance and exit points, the reduction in wait time in case of entering the zoo has been extremely positive to the visitor experience. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $15,000 from account 100-359-000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account 1660100-582513 Patron Park Zoo building improvements. Copies in your packet.
Capital Improvements, City Development, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Park and Forestry Derek Corsi regarding the need for funds to cover the cost of price increases for fertilizer and grass seed. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $8,819.19 from account 100-359-000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account 1650-1000-546010 Park Supply Ground. Copies in your packet.
Public Works, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Park and Forestry Derek Corsi regarding the receipt of the Massachusetts Office of Business Development Grant for Cape and Park Zoo. The City of Ambrose Cape and Park Zoo has been awarded $125,000 in state funds to help support the Cape and Park Zoo in the areas of visitor experience, new equipment, exhibit refurbishment and repair, and to support the overall animal welfare and zoo operations. Although this grant does not require any matching funds, the contract states that all funding should be spent or committed by June 30th, 2022. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments. Copies in your packet.
Public Works, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Recreation Dennis Walsh regarding the need for funds to repair the roof at the Bartech Center. The funding request includes a 10% contingency. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $7,546 from account 1000-359000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account 1630-1000-582513 recreation building improvements. Copies in your packet.
Capital improvements, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Schools David Sawyer regarding the donation of a Scott KM 1027 208B 1pH kiln with an estimated value of $3,440.92 for the art room at Southerly Elementary School from Ameriport Logistics. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept this generous donation to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City property and claims, please.
Sincerely, Paul Thoreau, Mayor.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, do we have any additional communications?
We do. We have the clerk's communication. We have received a joint petition from Massachusetts Electric Company and Verizon New England Incorporated requesting to install a new pole, 1071, on County Street, and install an intermediate pole, 1071-1, 106 feet from new pole 1071. A public hearing is required.
Refer to the Public Works Committee, please. And Councilor Dolan, would you like to call for a public hearing on March 15th?
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll take a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Clovis?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. And that is all the communications we have for this evening. I would entertain a motion to go into Committee of the Whole.
Second.
All those in favor? Actually, we will have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Clovis?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Simone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
Yeas, 0 nays.
Do we have anyone online who would like to speak in front of Committee of the Whole?
None that have expressed interest.
All right, thank you. I would entertain a motion to arise from Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Thank you. We'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone, please.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Clovis?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We now will now go on to committee reports, and we'll begin with Councilor Waterman.
The License Committee has no business tonight. We'll meet at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan.
Thank you. Public Works has no business this evening, and we look forward to a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for capital improvements to the City Development Committee, I have 3 measures to bring before the council this evening. From the docket of February 15, 2022, I entertain a motion to transfer $636,000 from the citywide reserve for cannabis impact fee to the citywide transfer to capital fund, and further transfer the $636,000 from the citywide transfer to capital fund to the police body cameras, other financing sources to purchase body-worn cameras, in-car video systems, and necessary associated computer software and technical components for the general system operation.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
Yes, Mr. President, I had a conversation with the chief to answer the questions from councilors during my committee meeting. The current situation is that all videos will be stored for 7 years, and there is legislation in front of the Massachusetts legislature that may increase those times based on the type of incident that is involved. So that is a evolving and changing environment that the chief will, of course, keep abreast of. Further, the cameras are being instituted into many communities in Massachusetts at the same time as cannabis and other federal funds become available. And there is a rules of procedure in place that's to be adopted, and of course that's a negotiation between the union and the administration. And it's set and it will be in place by the time the cameras arrive. And that completes my comments, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you for that research, Council Conti. One thing I would add is that there was a question about the storage, and the storage will be on the cloud. In accordance to the way that Boston Police stores their video on the cloud, as well as Massachusetts State Police, just given the nature of what it would take for those servers. I got that information from the mayor prior to this meeting, so just wanted to add that on. But thank you for getting the rest of that. I think it was extremely important. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns on this? Vice President Kobus.
Did we get a final update on the maintenance cost?
We did not get a estimate on the maintenance cost. I understand that you got a copy of the request for quote that went out to the firm, and I assume that because you're asking the question, there's no maintenance fee in that request for quote. But I'm not concerned that there will be money to maintain the system 8 years coming forward.
I agree with you. So I'm concerned about not seeing that cost, seeing how much money is coming in from, at least over the next 5 years, from the cannabis and the importance of this. I'm still happy to support it, but I am concerned at what that cost might look like for future years, especially knowing the size of the data and the storage requirements for so many years. So it is something I think it's important that we collectively keep a close eye on. But based on the importance of this, I think it's important for us to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Council Waterman.
Yes, Richard, do we have any rough sense of how long it might be before this could go online?
No, there was no timetable because the quotes just went out. So the process is we have to request quotes, we have to select the lowest cost bidder, we have to rely on their supply chain, and that could be variable, given that there's so many departments equipping their forces with the cameras at the same time. So we'll take them when we can get them, Counselor. That's all I can tell you.
All you can tell me. Thank
Great.
you.
Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman. Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Vice President Kobus.
Yes.
Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. From the docket of February 15, 2022, I move to approve expending funds and any future grant amendments received from a $10,000 grant to the city to participate in, quote, making it public, close quote, a program to promote public art across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
Only that, Mr. President, I am impressed with Cuddy's Court off of South Main Street. Sitting there at the traffic light, waiting for it to change and looking down that little corridor with the art that has been installed visible from South Main Street. It really changes that downtown area, and I'm quite pleased this is going to be happening. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Ms. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Vice President Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. From the docket of January 4th, 2022, I move to refer to the administration the request that the Attleboro Historical Commission seek a consultant to assist in ranking the city's existing historic resource inventory that is included in the inventory of Massachusetts Historical Commission. The consultant fee is expected to be approximately $10,008.
Do we have?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Cobus. Motion is in order.
So this pushes the ball forward to the administration so that we can get account numbers established and transferred. The $8 bothers me because it puts it above a $10,000 limit, but I'm sure they'll be able to work that through. And I do hope that my fellow councils will support this measure so that the Historical Commission can move forward. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Council Conti. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Council Waterman.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Vice President Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yeah.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Stallone.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
That concludes the business that the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council this evening. We look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Council Conti. Would you like to report for the Special Committee for Tax Abatement Review?
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for the Special Committee on Tax Abatement Review, I have one item to bring before the council this evening. From the docket of August 21st, 2018, I move to strike the Home Rule petition for the city with House of Representatives Amendment Article 89 and Massachusetts General Law Chapter 43B to adopt an ordinance for a senior tax program authorizing the city to amend Chapter 169 of Acts 2012, House Bill number 3815.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Cobus. Any comments, Council Conti?
Yes, Mr. President, this obscure language is a duplication of a measure that's also in our committee that we will be taking action on. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Vice President Cobus.
Yes.
Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the business that the Special Committee for Tax Abatement Review has to bring before the council this evening. We look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Council Conti. Councilor Bennett.
Reporting for the Traffic and Transportation Committee, one item this evening. From the docket of October 19th, 2021, I move to replace the yield sign with a stop sign at the intersection of Jewel and Hawthorne.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
No comments.
Any questions, comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes? Yes. Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Simone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
Yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you.
That concludes the business of the Traffic and Transportation Committee. I request a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Vice President Cobus.
Reporting for the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee doesn't have any business tonight, and we call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. According to Zoning and Ordinances Committee, no business this evening, but we'll call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds.
Reporting for City Property and Claims Committee from the docket of February 15th, 2020. I move to transfer $400 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Veterans, maintenance of vehicles for repairs, and an inspection sticker for a vehicle transferred from the school department to the Veterans Department.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
I have none.
Any other comments, questions, concerns from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
On the docket of February 15th, 2022, I move to transfer $1,052 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account of personnel supplied office equipment for requested office chair, standing desk, and wireless boards.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
I have none.
Any of the councils have any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. Councilor Reynolds?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries.
That is all the business that the City Property and Claims Committee has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. And before we move to personnel, I'm going to ask Councilor Reynolds to do public safety and emergency management. And prior to me recognizing Councilor Reynolds, I just want to wish our good friend Peter Blair a speedy recovery. He's had some health ailments as of late, which has prevented him from being able to participate. So, Councilor, I'm sure you're listening. We wish you a speedy recovery. Councilor Reynolds.
Okay, reporting for public safety and emergency management from the docket of January 18, 2022-PH 2-1-2022. I move to approve the following loan order. That $450,000 be appropriated for the cost of purchasing and equipping an ambulance. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $450,000 under Section 7(1) of Chapter 44 of the General Laws or any other enabling authority, and that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
I have none.
Thank you. Do we have any additional comments from the council on this? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
On the docket of December 7th, 2021, PH 1-18-22, I move to approve the following. To amend section -5.2A of the revised ordinances to prohibit parking on Staub Drive westerly side from North Avenue to Commonwealth Avenue.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
No, none for me.
Do we have any comments from the council on this? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
That is all the business that Public Safety and Emergency Management has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor Reynolds, and thank you for covering for Councilor Blair. Mr. Angelo?
Thank you, President Delicio. Reporting for Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, we have 14 items tonight. For the docket of February 15, 2022, I move to accept a donation of $360 in food gift cards from the Home Instead to the Council on Aging.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
It's a great gift cards for the Council on Aging. They can use it, certainly.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
For the docket of February 15th, 2022, I move to approve the following reappointments for positions and for the terms as indicated. Terrence McCrossin, Constable, 1-year term. Joshua Jorge, Constable, 1-year term. Laurie Sawyer, Council on Human Rights, 3-year term. Stephanie Gray, Council on Human Rights, 3 years. Cynthia Van Voris, Disability Commission, 3 years. Mary Flaherty, Disability Commission, 3 years.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
No, sir.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
From the docket of February 15th, 2022, I move to approve the appointment of Michael Morgan, 97 Mary Rocha Way, to fill an expired term on the Traffic Study Commission, term to expire February 2025.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
We heard Michael last week, and it was great, and I think he's going to be wonderful on the Traffic Study Commission.
Great, thank you. Any additional comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes? Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
From the docket of February 15th, 2022, I move to approve the appointment of Linda Alger, 24 Handy Street, to fill an expired term on the Board of Bar Commissions, term to expire February 2027.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
I think we know valuable asset Linda's going to be. That's about it.
Any additional comments or concerns from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
Yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
For the docket of February 15, 2022, I move to approve the appointment of Delia Russell, 6 Jody Way, to fill an unexpired term on the Board of Park Commission's term to expire February 2025.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
Delia was here last week. She spoke wonderfully, and she's going to be a valuable addition to the Park Commission.
Agreed. Any additional comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
For the docket of February 15, 2022, I move to approve expending funds and any future grant amendments by the Culture Council regarding the award of $32,200 from the Massachusetts Cultural Council.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
It's just important for the city, and that's it.
Okay. Any additional comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes?
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
From the docket of February 15, 2022, I move to approve expending of funds and any future grant amendments pertaining to the Bristol Elder Service Grant of $18,884.57 received by the Council on Aging. Additionally, I request a transfer of $3,332.57 from the Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account the citywide transfer to grant, and further transfer of $3,332.57 to the Bristol Elder Council on Aging Outreach Municipal Distribution for the non-federal match required by the city.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any questions? Comments, rather?
No, sir.
Any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
From the docket of February 15, 2022, I move to approve the expending of funds and any future grant amendments pertaining to the Bristol Elder Service Grant for $4,615 received by the Council on Aging, and additionally request a transfer of $814.50 from the Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Citywide Transfer to Grant, and further transfer $814.50 to account Bristol Elder Council on Aging, mind and body, to the fund the non-federal match required by the city.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
No, sir.
Any additional comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
Yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
From the docket of February 15, 2022, I move to reappoint Deborah Gould of 386 South Washington Street, North Attleboro, for a 2-year term as auditor, term to expire February 2024.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
Deb Gould is just a fantastic help to all of us, and lucky to have her.
Any additional comments or questions? I would agree with Counselor Angelo. Deb Gould is really an unsung hero in this city, especially to this council. So glad to see Deb for at least another 2 years. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Counselor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes?
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of February 15, 2022, I move to reappoint Virginia Stewart Becker of 101 South Avenue, Attleboro, for a 2-year term as council assistant, term to expire February 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
We're incredibly lucky to have Virginia Stewart Becker with us. She's just been fantastic.
Well stated. Any additional questions, comments, or concerns? I just want to say thank you to Virginia for making the transition from a new term and new councils a lot easier. Glad to have Virginia back for 2 years as well. Any additional comments or concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Mr. Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
Yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of January 18, 2022, entertain a motion to merge budget and appropriations with capital improvements to form one committee called Finance Committee.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments, Mr. Angelo?
We discussed this last meeting. I think enough was said.
Okay. Any additional comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of January 18, 2022, I entertain a motion to add a new committee called IT and Infrastructure Committee.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments,
We
rather?
discussed this last week, sorry.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of January 18, 2022, I move to approve the following reappointments for positions and for the terms as indicated. Stephen LeMay, Constable, 1 year. John Lepper, Council on Aging, 4 years. George Spatcher Jr., Board of Election Commissions, 4 years. Sherry Miller Badeau, Council on Substance Abuse Prevention, 3 years. Jackie Romanicki, Redevelopment Authority, 5 years. Charles Oliver, Board of Trust Fund Commissions, 3 years. D. Locken, Board of Recreation Commissioners, 3 years. Paul Asfin, Traffic Study Commission, 3 years. Bruce Ziegler, Board of Recreation Commissioners, 3 years. Gail Clark, Municipal Building Commission, 3 years. Catherine Merkel, Personal Board, 3 years.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Do we have any comments?
I think we're all just lucky to have everybody here.
Any additional comments from the council? Okay, I'd like to give up the chair to Vice President Cobus.
President Delicio.
Thank you. So 2 weeks ago, Mr. Kerr stood before this honorable body and discussed his concerns about the 2021 municipal election. I thought he did an articulate job of raising his concerns. Consequently, the following, a couple days later, I believe it was that Thursday, Councilor Angelo and myself had the opportunity to attend the Board of Elections meeting. There, we heard Mr. Kerr be able to raise the same concerns he raised in front of us. We had the opportunity to hear from the Election Commission. We had the opportunity to hear from George Spatcher. George Spatcher had taken the time to send each of us his stance on the position. I want to thank Mr. Kerr for raising these concerns. From this, we realize that there's an opportunity to improve the process from who's holding the keys, as we saw from Mr. Spatcher's email. Also, one thing I would note is that it's important that we understand that there were no findings to Mr. Kerr's claim. We do appreciate Mr. Kerr's claim coming forward, but I do want to speak personally on behalf of Mr. Spatcher, someone that I've known for a long time in the city, someone who I've never heard a bad word uttered, and I think that we saw just who Mr. Spatcher is when he was able to send us the information that was not even requested, but that he knew was relevant to what we went through. I want to recognize the rest of the Board of Election Commissioners, the wardens, and every volunteer who spends time making sure that our elections go off without a hitch. I think Cheryl Perry and Leslie Vega do a fine job in the elections office. I do appreciate Mr. Kerr coming forward again, raising these concerns. I understand that it's never easy to do, to come in front of the council as well as the Board of Elections. I know it's been a late night. I won't belabor the point, but I thought that these points were necessary to make. Thank you.
Thank you, President Delicio.
I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay.
Okay.
Because I got a comment for the next one, too.
All right. Any other comments from the council? Hearing none, a roll call vote is in order, and we'll start with
Councilor DeSimone.
Councilor DeSimone. Thank you.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Vice President Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Nolan.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
On the docket of
Angelo.
December...
Yeah.
All right, from the docket of December 21st, 2021, voted out 12/21/21, 2 yeas, 1 nay. Move to strike the appointment of Bill Bedward, 31 Leewood Lane, to fill an unexpired term on the planning board, term to expire February 2025.
Second. Sorry, can somebody else second, real quick?
Second.
Motion's in order. Any comments?
I will leave that to President Delicio.
Thank you. So,
President Delicio.
thank you, Vice President Cobus. It's important to note the reason we're striking this appointment is because of when it came down in the communication, we had 45 days to act upon it. In the fact that there were questions raised when Mr. Beardwood came in front of the council, combine that with the change in term, because this came down last term. Change in department heads as well. So because of the city charter, and I do want to thank Solicitor Amara for giving the clarification. We had questions whether or not it was what it meant from when the council takes action. Was it from when it came down to when it was voted out of committee? And it's when it came down and was assigned to committee, we had 45 days. We did not act in terms of approving Mr. Beardswood or not approving Mr. Beardswood's. Therefore, he is now a part of the planning board, and we're moving to strike this to make the record accurate. There were several ways we could have done this. I felt, as the president, this was the cleanest way to do it. I do want to thank Mr. Beardwood for his patience, and I wish him well on his new venture on the planning board.
Thank you, President Delicio. Any other further comments? Councilor Waterman.
At the time, December 21st, I was the chair of the Personnel Committee. And first of all, I want to say I did not realize the 45 days. That I found Mr. Beardswood, and I'm glad he's going on the Planning Committee. I found him to be a very committed individual to the city of Attleboro, that he really wants homeowners to be proud of where they live, and he wants to help with that process. I also found him to be an extremely level-headed individual. He's got what I call common sense, and with that, we'll go forward.
Thank you. Any other comments?
All I'd like to say is I would just echo what Councilor Waterman said and kind of come to that same conclusion.
Thank you. A roll call vote is required, and we'll start with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman.
Point of order. If we vote yes, it's to strike.
Correct. We're
That
voting
is
to-
correct. Yeah.
We're voting to strike because he's already a member of the planning board.
Thank you.
Roll call vote is required and starts with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Vice President Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Simone.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
Yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
That concludes the business of the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Service Committee, and I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor DeSimone.
Yes, thank you very much. Reporting for ordinances, elections, and legislative matters. I have 2 items to bring before this body. I had planned on 3, but due to an admission on my part, we will have to vote on the Chapter 16 amendments to the water provisions at the next regular meeting. So, proceeding from the docket of April 20th, 2021, I move to call a public hearing for March 1st, 2022 regarding amendments to City Ordinance 1-12 that states the powers and duties of the Attleboro Historical Commission so that gifting and/or disposition of property can be addressed.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
Yes, if I may, just to be clear, what's before us is, at the public hearing is not the subject of the business you see there, but the amendment, the proposed amendment to the ordinances that I submitted to this body, number 1, and number 2, because, as I mentioned last time, the Historical Commission is in fact a creature of Mass General Law. The provisions that we may adopt do not really pertain to gifting or disposition because the activities of the body are pretty much specified in Mass General Law.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Vice President Cobus.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Next up on the docket of April 6th, 2021, I entertain a motion to strike the following. A request to modify the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to change the term length for appointed paid positions where the term length is currently greater than 1 year to a length of up to the existing term length, which cannot apply to positions which depend on a rotation schedule where 1 or more positions expire each year.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
None for me.
Thank you. Any comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Mr. Waterman.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Vice President Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Angelo.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
President Delicio.
Yes.
And yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes the business for the ordinances, elections, and legislative matters committee, and we look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. We have no old business. We have 2 pieces of new business for which I will recognize Ms. DeSimone first.
You're muted.
Kathleen, you may be muted.
Thank you all, thank you. Thank you, President Delacio. I'm going to proceed with one of the items I submitted and not move on the other one at the moment. I move the following be referred for study and recommendation, a policy for waiving building department permit fees, and I won't read the whole thing right now.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Was that Councilor Holmes? Who second? Okay, Councilor Holmes, thank you. We will recognize Councilor DeSimone for any comments.
Thank you very much. Briefly, this came about a while ago, and I should acknowledge President Delacio. He had worked, this goes back a while, so my apologies. To last summer, when we voted on fee waivers for 37 Union Street and New Hope, and I got to thinking that maybe we need a policy to kind of guide us in making these decisions. It's certainly not something that comes across our desk a lot, but I was reminded of it last week. I think Councilor Conti made comments to the effect of having a fee waiver policy. So we have it. So it's been a long time in the making. I did consult for the record with several department heads, so they are in agreement for it, but I thought it for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns on this? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Mr. Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delacio?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. That'll be referred to the Ordinances Committee. We have one last piece of business coming in from myself, Councilor Cobus, and Vice President Cobus, and Councilor Reynolds. I will recognize Councilor Cobus.
I move that the following be referred for study and recommendation, a proposed resolution in support of the South Attleboro train station renovation project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Encourage everyone to support this. This is a great project, and the resolution will help show our support to the state.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor, Vice President Cobus. So I'd like to add, I've been working with Councilor Reynolds, Vice President Cobus, State Rep Hawkins, Senator Feeney, State Rep Barrows, State Rep Howitt, State Rep Scanlon. The condition of the South Attleboro train station is in disarray. This resolution will be a resolution of support for the projected project to move forward. This is an important project, as this serves two states, really two cities primarily, in Pawtucket and in Attleboro. We have partnerships with RIPTA as well as GATRA, and we really need to have this project move forward. So our support in the form of a resolution, which I'm hoping we can discuss next week, will get that ball rolling on this really important project. Any other comments or concerns? Councilor Reynolds, anything you'd like to add?
The only thing I would like to add is that I hope we very much support this and push it forward, because that train station needs to open. I mean, as most of you know, there is 300 plus apartments going in there next couple of years, and you know, that train station is a big reason they picked that site. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Waterman.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
President Delacio?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. I'll assign that to city property and claims. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
We will have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor DeSimone.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Vice President Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
President Delacio?
Yes. We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. I know it was a long meeting. Everyone did a nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.